Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 199 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. We are one episode away from the legendary episode 200, but I think we're going to have a half step next week, 199.5 or something of that equivalent. Matt is out next week, and we're working on getting a special guest to come in for next week's episode, so you don't want to miss it. But the big 200, which is a big turning point for the site, that's when Sifted 2.0 launches. That is not going to happen until 2 Tuesdays from today. So get excited for that. Get excited for next week, too. We should have a good co-host here sitting with me. Something that was related to Sifted 2.0 actually launched today, and I want to bring it up right off the top of the show because some people on YouTube will watch this episode and they'll hear the intro and then they'll skim through the rest of the episode. One of the things that we are doing with Sifted 2.0 is Pactor Factor is now going to be available 7 days early to our Twitch Prime subscribers. So, and people, here comes the hype train. It's getting started already. So if you subscribe via Twitch Prime, and a lot of people on YouTube do, you can now get Pactor Factor 7 days early on our Twitch page. So twitch.tv/siftedgames. If you're a subscriber via Twitch Prime, the new Pactor Factor, which just went up today, is live right now on our Twitch page. But again, you have to be a subscriber. This is a big shift for us, but something that we wanted to do to encourage people to use Twitch Prime more. I think people are more apt to give us a couple bucks if it doesn't cost them anything than to go to our Patreon and actually pledge that $2. So this is a big change for us for Sifted 2.0. We do want to reward the people who have been helping us out via Twitch Prime and maybe can't afford to help us via Patreon or any other way. So Pactor Factor from today forward is live day and date on sifted.net, on our Patreon, and now also at twitch.tv/siftedgames. And if you're on YouTube watching this, you're like, how do I subscribe via Twitch Prime? Just go down into the description. Like always, there's a description that explains how it all works. If you've already connected your accounts on Twitch, you literally just have to click one link and then click a button on our page. And you will have access to Pactor Factor 7 days earlier than you will be getting it on YouTube for those who don't subscribe via Twitch Prime or are not patrons. So a big shift. I hope it makes a difference for us. Hopefully it gets more people to help us via Twitch Prime. Again, it's free. And I think it's easier to get people to do something that doesn't cost them anything than something that does. So hopefully that all works out. Things are still slow as all get out in the gaming industry right now, Matt. It's just insane. I got review code for Dreams today. I haven't got to play it yet because it came in as I was getting ready and doing pre-production for this episode.
And really, like that's a hard one to play early.
Oh yeah,
because of the nature of
you
how
need
it works.
like other people there. Now, because it's been in a beta for so long, there's a lot
of content.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to check it out. Like once I get home and I start.
I have the early access version. I got back when that went up, but I haven't looked at it in a long time.
I think if you paid for the early access version, which I'm assuming they considered that you did.
Yeah, it converts to the full version.
Yeah. So if you've been playing the early access version, when it goes live on Friday, February 14th, Valentine's Day, you'll get the game for free. Well, you paid for it before, but you don't have to pay extra to get the complete version.
I think it was cheaper.
Yeah.
Than the full version will be.
Yeah, so it was incentivizing you to get in so that when people like me show up on launch day, there's a bunch of stuff in there for us to check out. So Dreams will be on the show next week. But this week, not a ton of games to talk about, but tons of topics. In fact, we have 12 topics in today's show. So lots of little things, nothing major, but I think it's going to be a really fun show, and it's going to be a good show. I'm here with Matt Kyle. You can find Matt on Twitter at mkeil, M-K-E-I-L. You can find me on Twitter at Dinfire. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, you can help us out at our Patreon at patreon.com/sifted. That's S-I-F-T-D, sifted without the E. So we do have a ton of topics to get through. These episodes generally, it's as the host, it's always hard for me to gauge this many topics to get to the finish line. What we end up doing is the beginning of the show sometimes we'll go really fast, and then I'll realize in the middle, like, oh, we have a lot of time left, and then they start expanding. So it's always interesting when we do episodes like this. Typically, our show has 7 or 8, and we got 12. So let's just get straight to it. We got a lot to talk about. And speaking of a lot to talk about, Phil Spencer had a lot to talk about this week about Xbox Series X. he went on, I believe it was like the 1,000th episode of Gamer Tag Radio. And look, I've never listened to that show, and I don't know those guys, but respect. If you're at episode 1,000 of your show, you're absolutely doing something right. And I think Phil Spencer recognized that and decided to go on their show, and boy, oh boy, was he chatty. Did you get to check out any of the stuff from this?
I didn't hear any of it, but I saw like articles about it or like, tweets about what he said.
Oh, it's insane. First of all, he was on there for a really long time. It's the longest Phil Spencer interview maybe ever. But he's on a podcast. You can't just show up for like 3 minutes and give your bullet points and get out. Like, you have to be a part of the show. So this was a great forum for him to explain a lot of stuff that's going on with Xbox Series X. And probably the most profound quote from the week that has been kind of making the rounds through social media is that Phil said that he does not consider Xbox Series X to be competing with other consoles. He says their competition is Google and Amazon. Now,
which is pretty much what I said last week.
It's what Pachter has been saying for like a year. I mean, he's been saying Amazon and Google are really the competition going forward. Phil Spencer acquiesced to that and agreed and said that's really kind of who we're targeting to go after.
Because at this point, Sony is the devil they do know, and they'd rather deal with that. I think. Google, I mean, I feel like at this point they're probably relaxing a bit when it comes to Google, but you still don't know what Amazon's going to do next.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at it as like deflection on Phil's part. Like him trying to say, and Nintendo used to do this too, it would say, they're not really our competition, and they only say that so that you don't compare them to them, so you can't see that they're getting their butts kicked. So this could be the same strategy from Phil, where he's just trying to say, well, we don't really want to compete with PlayStation because we're probably not going to win. So let me pick some opponents that I think we have a shot at beating. And in his opinion, that was Stadia, Google, and Amazon, whatever Amazon ends up doing. Everyone knows at this point Amazon is just a matter of time until it announces its game streaming initiative. So that, to me, was a big deal, that he decided that PlayStation wasn't their big competition anymore, that it was these streaming guys. I think it shows the emphasis on Xbox Game Pass and services from Microsoft going forward, that it has been its focus for a while. I don't want to completely sort of short Phil, because he's been talking about this stuff for a while. And when they stopped giving out sales figures and started giving out, like, subscription numbers for Game Pass and how many subscribers they have to Xbox Live, they've kind of been following this strategy for a while. I just kind of thought that with the new hope of a new platform, that maybe they might at least try to engage with PlayStation for the first year until you kind of realize that, yeah, that's not going to work out too well in our favor. It might. I mean, they might win this generation. So I think that's a little bit short-sighted, but I also feel like that's Phil just kind of covering his tail. And I'm sure that's the messaging internally as well, as, well, we're not really competing with PlayStation. We're competing with these other guys. It could be considered smart. It could be considered sneaky. I think it all depends on your perspective. So about 3 weeks ago, real images of Xbox Series X emerged on the internet, and someone had taken photos of the back of the Xbox Series X, and there was a port there that people were confused over. And a lot of people thought maybe it was for debug only, and it was some special port that only the debugs have. Well, no, it's turned out that that port is used for extra memory, so for like an external drive. Now, the question becomes, does that external drive also have to be an SD drive?
I would think it would.
Yeah, and that external SD drives are really, really pricey.
They can be. I mean, you can get a good deal here and there on an SSD.
It's hard to find. I mean, we look for them when we curate on Sifted, and once every like 4 or 5 months, there's a pretty good deal on them. But they're usually internal, not external.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, I think you're just the speed at which these systems are going to load and expect to load, like you just can't use 7600 or 7200 anymore. I mean, I'm already running into that problem with my external drives on the current systems, where I could, the Xbox One takes forever to load up all the stuff that's on the external drive. So it
takes forever to load up the things that are on the internal drive.
Yeah, I mean, I hope
not for yours, but my base model does.
Yeah, I mean, it still takes a while on the X, but like better, but still too slow to be acceptable, I think. Sometimes you have to sit there and watch it populate for a long. I mean, I have like 100-something games installed, but like sometimes you just have to sit there and like wait for it all to pop in.
Doink, 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 doink. Yeah, all showing up in sequence.
I think that kind of user experience is not going to be acceptable in the next generation, at least in the way that they're going to be pushing it, and certainly showing that the first thing Sony showed off was how fast Spider-Man loads now, and for the fact that it really doesn't load.
Yeah.
So I think SSD is going to be required unless you're going to be hamstringing the OS at this point.
I don't know if you noticed or not, but in the last couple of months, even the PlayStation 4 OS has gotten slow. Mm-hmm. So the PlayStation 4 desktop now, it's not quite as slow as Xbox One, but it's slow. Like compared to how it was at launch, it's at a kind of a crawl now. I don't know why that is. I don't know why it's gotten so much worse over the last couple months, but it has. There's really bad delay when you go to switch through. I'll just call them blades because that's kind of what we call them after the initial launch of the Xbox 360. But yeah, just swapping through the stuff, there's a lag now.
I haven't seen that.
And I have a PS4 Pro as well, so it's not like I'm on a base model there. But I've noticed that. I think it's just the way things go. It's like as time goes on, you keep building and building on top, and you're always trying to manage the speed with the functionality. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe that the scales got tipped a little bit in the wrong direction over here the last couple of months. Maybe they can fix it, but I've had a lot of problems.
I haven't had any issue with that. I mean, I haven't used the PS4 that much.
Yeah,
but I haven't noticed anything.
I use it every night, so I've really noticed it.
I have noticed slowness in the store, like just loading. Images that are just like it crawls sometimes, especially around the holiday sale. It was having trouble with that.
A lot of people are probably using it. Yeah. Makes sense.
But I haven't noticed too much problems switching around. And I have noticed some slowness in downloading stuff to install to an external drive because I only recently got an external drive for the PS4. Because originally I had a 2 terabyte. I swapped out the internal hard drive with a 2 terabyte. And that was great, but it was just too full, and I couldn't keep deleting stuff and still keep up. So I got an external, and it works, but it's not. The PS4 doesn't do that as well as the Xbox, and we lost power at one point because of the storm, windstorm, like a couple weeks ago. And of course, I forgot. The PS4 was asleep, and I turned it back on. It's like, oh, the disc is damaged. You have to repair it, and I got to go through all this stuff. Whereas the Xbox, just like, oh, you lost power. Yeah, whatever, we're good.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
So Sony's not quite. But Microsoft makes OSs, so they do have an advantage there. But,
how big do you think the hard drives are going to be on these consoles?
I'm just going to go with not big enough.
Right. I mean, they're really expensive. Yeah. Even if you're buying in bulk, it's still really expensive.
I mean, I would expect 1 terabyte.
I think that's
way
like
too small.
Best case scenario. Yeah, and I think you're right. It's way too small. And then if you're to expand that, obviously Series X has the port there. You're going to drop another $100 on an external drive.
So what is the port then?
What kind of port is it specifically?
Because why wouldn't it just be a USB-C?
I don't know.
And call it a day? Is it some custom thing?
Yeah, I don't know if we can. Actually, the trailer doesn't show it. It's just in those photos. It's I've never seen a port like it before. It's like this slit that's like about this long and about that thick. I don't know what it is, but that's what they figured out over time is that it's for external storage expansion.
Interesting.
Yeah, which I'm guessing they're going to need, and I'm wondering too if you can just use a regular external drive and it's just going to be slower. Which would defeat the purpose of, some of the new functionality of the consoles.
So that's a choice you can make.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the choice is in your hands, I'm okay with it. They're not forcing anything on you. And truth be told, for the first year you own your console, a terabyte's going to be enough. One, the games are going to be slow to be coming out. There's not going to be an avalanche of games. That's generally year 2 and year 3. And, I think we've all gotten used to at this point to kind of keeping the games that we play a lot on our hard drive, and then the stuff like the single player stuff that you play, finish, you're done, kind of putting that on, taking it off as they come and go. So I think we've been prepared a little bit for that over this last generation of consoles. So I don't think it'll be too big of a deal, but we'll see. A lot of it's going to depend on the price of those external drives too, I think. They could be really, really pricey. Phil also shared that he has been using the Xbox Series X at home for a while now. So the hardware is finished. They have the first versions of the hardware off the assembly line. He said that pretty much everyone at the internal Xbox team has them at home now. They've been using them. That is really, really good. That means all the kinks are going to be worked out beforehand. He's been testing backwards compatibility on his. And by the way, if you want to follow him on Xbox Live, his playlist is kind of a list of games that are going to work with backwards compatibility on day one. He's been going through all the games, checking them. If there's problems, obviously he notifies the team. But what did he say? There's like 400 or a couple hundred games he's already confirmed that are working with the backwards compatibility on Series X. That's pretty good if you ask me. Let's see. Some other notes that I have.
As long as Ninja Gaiden works.
Yeah, exactly. Again, I want to reiterate because they are the source of this information. This is coming from the Gamertag podcast. If you want to check those guys out, I want to give them credit for all this. One thing that Phil said is the Xbox wants to be different going into the next generation, and the strategies will be different. He said the reveal at the Game Awards was just the first step. No one expected it. Microsoft wants to continue doing this. So it sounds like expecting new information about Series X at the usual places, like maybe a GDC or an E3. Maybe that's not going to be the case going forward. Maybe it's adopting kind of Sony's strategy.
Yeah.
Interesting, nevertheless. Gamers are playing games on tons of devices nowadays, and it's important for Microsoft to support as many as they can. He said that's why there are going to be no exclusive first-party Xbox Series X games at launch. Because he said he didn't want any game to be limited to just that console during the first year or two of the device. So it sounds like the first 2 years.
Sell that install base.
Yeah. So it sounds like the first 2 years of Series X, you're going to be able to play all its games on the older models, which is great.
Or PC.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't necessarily incentivize people to pick up the new hardware, but Microsoft isn't concerned about that, really. No. It doesn't care. If it's losing money on each Series X, it probably would prefer if you stuck on the old consoles.
This is entirely about ecosystem, like we've said for a long time.
It is. He also talked about Japan. Now, Japan has been a nightmare for Xbox from day one. Like, the first Xbox had a little bit of a foothold. Like, I remember going to Japan during that generation, and you go into a game store, and it would be like, the whole store was like PS2.
Oh, yeah.
There'd be like a 20-foot section for GameCube, and then there'd literally be like a 4-foot section with Xbox stuff.
Yeah, like sometimes there was a bigger Dreamcast section.
Still at that point. Yeah, absolutely. And since then, it's only gotten worse. Like the last time I was in Japan, I couldn't find Xbox anything anywhere. So it has struggled to do well in Japan. It has tried to do well, or at least it used to try to do well. We're actually going to talk about a game a little bit later in the show that was one of Microsoft's efforts to kind of crack into that market. But it has tried, and it just hasn't managed to succeed. The thing is, Phil's not ready to give up. Like, he's not giving up on Japan. He said they haven't signed any exclusive games from Japanese developers yet, but he's looking into it, and it's something that they're considering. And yet they asked him about first-party Xbox games for Japan. He said there's nothing to announce, which means no, that's probably never, ever going to happen. He said he knows it's important, but is it really all that important to the Xbox business? I think
at this point you can't be counting on it one way or the other.
I think it's important to the otaku who wish that Xbox had a bunch of Japanese games that were exclusives, but
nobody bought them. So I mean, there was that period where you had Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon, and they had the Mistwalker stuff. They tried it. It just didn't catch.
It didn't stick. Could Microsoft buy a Japanese studio and fix a lot of problems? Like, what if it bought From Software?
I mean, they could. I don't really see what that would solve.
I mean, then it's like a token.
Sort of.
Yeah.
But and I just, it doesn't seem like they have the greatest track record working with Japanese developers. Scalebound.
Absolutely true.
So I don't know if that's even really worth pursuing at this point.
I don't know if Japan is worth pursuing in general for Xbox.
I mean, Japan is mostly ruled by mobile at this point, so I don't even know if that matters, especially if you're going more of an ecosystem focused, Western style.
Maybe it
PC
is smarter
to
do what they're doing,
so, yeah.
Which is, you know what, you can play our games on your mobile phone, or you can play it on your PC at home, or whatever.
And they'll welcome multi-platform stuff. The Yakuza games are coming and all this. Everyone's invited, but they seem kind of done trying to sway people with Japanese content as some sort of incentive to buy an Xbox.
Yep.
And it's hard to blame them.
I don't
blame them. It just feels like you're never going to make headway there. So just save your resources for something more worthwhile.
I was surprised they even kept trying through this 360 era. I mean, after what happened with the original Xbox, I was like, oh. You probably should just bail on this, but they tried again.
Although, if you would like to try again with a new Jet Set Radio, I would take that.
I can think of a lot of games.
Or a Jet Set Radio Future. I'd like to see that become backwards compatible. Yeah. Phil, if we're working on that. Because cool. That's a lost game.
It is.
It was exclusive to the original Xbox, and there's no other way to play it. So
yeah, it's true.
Bring that sucker forward. I'm sure there would be some music licensing you had to do, but I'd like to play Jet Set Radio Future again.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Then the final kind of bit, and look, there's more. Again, I highly recommend going and listening to the Gamer Tag podcast. The last big bullet point was that Microsoft doesn't want anything to do with VR. I mean, that's the Crib Notes version. I mean, it took him 1,000 words to say it, but ultimately, Microsoft doesn't want anything to do with VR. He said they're not going to do it until it becomes, and this is a quote, a no-brainer, meaning that it's just so overwhelmingly...
It's such a staple that everybody has to have it.
Yep.
Which makes sense at this point. Because they haven't just dove in. If you get sunk costs like Sony does, you got to keep chasing that dragon. But
Microsoft was smart.
Microsoft stayed out. I mean, they sunk their own costs into the HoloLens crap.
That's true.
But they didn't put it out as a product
commercially.
So they didn't go all the way with that one, and I think that was wise.
Yeah, they don't have warehouses full of HoloLens sitting around unsold. No. That was
$3,000.
Yeah,
AR
that's
stuff.
not how they operated with their headset. The only headset that they have put out, really. They did do the Windows mixed media headsets or whatever. They tried to work with those. That didn't work.
That whole thing has proven to be a massive bust. It's that and was it Magic Square?
Oh, Magic Leap.
Magic Leap, that's right.
Which is that now fired half its staff and it's it's not going to last. I said that we've been saying that all along about Magic Leap. Augmented reality just hasn't really caught on with the mainstream because people can do it on their phones. They're like, why do I need to buy glasses or a headset?
Well, and also it's not what you think you see when they do the big presentations and you see Minecraft sitting on the table and then you go and actually try it and the viewing angle is 30% of your vision cone.
You can't move. You have to sit perfectly still.
It's not like VR where you put it on and it's better than you imagined.
Right.
HoloLens was always
worse.
Less. It's
it's true. It doesn't look like they're going to go into VR. He also said that right now he feels like most of the games are really just demos. A lot of them are plagued with performance issues, and then there's other problems with motion sickness. So it's hard for me to argue against Microsoft, its plan. It's smart, Sony has invested a ton of money in PlayStation VR. I was pleasantly surprised to find out that they ended up selling 5 million of them, but that's still not scale, really. I mean, when you're talking about the PlayStation 4 just went over, 108 million sold or something absurd. In 5 million, that's just a drop in the bucket for PlayStation VR. So I think Microsoft's doing it the right way. For right now, I think VR does best on PC. Although, the Series X is a pretty beastly PC that they're putting out. Yeah. So I could see it maybe coming online in a couple years. And it's not even something Microsoft is going to have to worry about. They could probably have the HMD manufacturers work on the libraries and getting it up and running on the hardware. So I think that's the right call. In 2020, I think that's the right call. We'll see as time changes, though. So there you go. More and more details coming about Xbox Series X. On the flip side, we have PlayStation, which was supposed to have an event this week. It didn't have
Rumored,
but now it's looking like GDC is going to be at least something for PlayStation 5.
DICE coming up. Somebody might say something.
DICE.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of developers.
It is, but it's also
sitting around getting drunk, playing blackjack.
Drunk developers talk.
They do.
So we might find out a couple
Something
of things
could leak out.
there.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. I do remember sitting at the bar at DICE a couple times and people...
DICE is where I've heard the craziest stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes years to figure out what they were talking about.
Yeah.
That was that.
Why is it that event, the developers talk?
Because it's so hard to get in.
I guess.
And if you're there, they assume you're part of the club kind of thing, which, I was at the time.
I remember...
I haven't gone to that in forever. I like DICE a lot.
It's fun. I mean, it's a big party. It's
a big party, and it's where you're
industry.
most likely to get one-on-one hangout time with the big luminary people. It's where I probably talked the most to people like Ken Levine and actually I was on a panel with him at PAX, so I talked to him. But you can just go up to everybody and
they're just there,
and Will Wright will talk to you for hours about robots, and it's great. It's a lot of fun.
I went to DICE the year that Microsoft bought Rare, and for journalists, there's not a lot going on there. It's not like a typical trade show where there's kiosks set up and there's all this stuff. It's mostly this big room where everybody goes for the presentations and the awards, and then people just party.
Hang out. The presentations are usually really interesting. We did the awards show. We produced and hosted the awards show with XPlay for years.
That's right.
And I started getting in because one year they came to us and they're like, well, we got to do this Lifetime Achievement Award like montage segment for Sid Meier, and the people it was going to do it can't do it. So can you do it in like 2 days? And I was like, and my boss came up and was like, "You think you could do that?" And I'm like, "For Sid Meier, yes, yes,
absolutely.
I can."
Yeah.
And I got to our fastest editor, Justin Dornbush, and we just threw that thing together in 2 days, and they're like, awesome.
They loved it.
They loved it. I still use the bag they gave me as a present from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, for a couple of years I got to go and went a couple of times, and it was great. And but yeah, I don't know what you do for like a news, like a journalism side thing, but in terms of just sort of networking and meeting people, it's amazing.
Well, to finish my story, so I'm there and I'm talking to somebody about a rare game. And somebody comes up to me and they're like, "Oh, you're talking about our game." Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Your game?" And he's like, "Yeah, I work at Rare." And I was like, it's the first time I ever met someone from Rare in person. Like, literally, they used to be like just shuttered. Mm-hmm. You could never interview anyone from there.
They're also off, they were off in the middle of nowhere in England.
Yeah,
or
in the country.
They were,
yeah. And I was like, holy crap. I'm like, I've been doing this for like 15 years. I've never met someone from Rare. And he's like, well, you're going to start seeing us now because the purchase had just happened. And he's like, oh, this is a whole new life for us now. Like, Nintendo was keeping Rare. Wait
until you see the bottom of the Avatar's shoes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he didn't even know what was coming at that point. He's just like, Nintendo isn't going to keep us behind closed doors anymore. We can actually like talk to people now. And he just started spilling his guts to me about everything. About like Banjo 3, about what happened with Nintendo. I was like, holy crap, I can't believe you're telling me this stuff. There is an interview with him. It's probably lost on the internet now, but I did eventually get a crew and come over and get him to say a bunch of stuff on camera about it. But that's the type of stuff that happens at DICE. And that's why people go, but it's also why I haven't been there in a long time because there's no coverage.
Right.
So, but something could leak out of there.
For people like us, I think DICE is an indulgence.
For sure.
Basically.
For sure.
Like, you're not going to get a lot of traction story stuff out of it.
Yeah, I think it's more likely that we do get details at GDC than DICE.
Official details, yeah, but I still think a couple people might say the same.
Like, I may get like a DM or like an instant message from somebody who's like, oh, I just heard this here, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you have to take it with a grain of salt, although stuff that comes from DICE is pretty reliable in general. So, all right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Modern Warfare Season 2. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I feel it's a game that's doing the game as a service, the DLC, right. And I wanted to wait to talk about this until after I had experienced a full season in the game. And today, Season 2 kicks off, and it's new content, but the structure and how it works is going to be the same as it was for Season 1. So the big news leading up to the release of this game was that there was going to be no paid DLC. And that is 1,000% true. Everything eventually is free. How it works is there are so many, there are literally like 4 or 5 different leveling systems going on at once in Modern Warfare 2. But the main one for the season pass is a series of challenges that you have to complete that unlock different stuff. And it's just a linear chain, and it shows you very clearly, like, once you get this many experience points, you're going to unlock this. Once you get to this next zenith, you're going to unlock this. And generally, you're unlocking character skins, like playable character skins. And they do remodel some of them. They're not just merely skins. You're getting, like, cosmetics for, like, your gun. You're getting sprays, which are these emotes that you can spray up. The maps are not a part of that. So the maps are released by Activision on a very defined schedule, and I'll go through those in a second for Season 2. For Season 1, most of them were available, like, immediately, and then they dripped, like, one extra one as the month wore on. So you basically have, like, a month to make it through a series of challenges, and there's tons. Like, this Season 1, I got to, like, I think level, like, 55 or something like that, and there's literally, like, dozens and dozens more levels. But the good news is that they do kind of front load it. So with every season, you get a couple free weapons or a couple new weapons, but they're loaded. And like, I got the second weapon in Season 1 when I got to like level 22 or something like that. So the big stuff that people really want, they do put towards the front of the line so that people who don't spend their entire lives playing Call of Duty can actually unlock the stuff that people care about. The same with the operators. Like, the new playable characters, they're front-loaded towards the front. And then sprinkled in between are the cosmetics and stuff like that I talked about. But there's also these tokens that you can get for XP. So you can get a token that's 45 minutes of double XP or 30 minutes of double weapon XP. And a lot of that stuff you want to use strategically when you're trying to kind of make it at the end before they close down the season. Because the thing is, as of today, everything in Season 1's gone now. So if you didn't play and get all that stuff unlocked, you can't get it. But again, they front load a lot of this stuff towards the beginning of the season, so it's pretty easy to get that stuff. So today, they turned the page. Season 2 has launched. Probably the thing that people will care about the most from Season 2 is that Ghost from Modern Warfare 2 is going to be a playable character. You can unlock him through the Battle Pass. And
Call me when COD Dog is playable.
Yeah, that's actually... I'm surprised he has not yet been a DLC character. The other thing, too, is that if you don't want to spend the time playing, you can pay real money to skip through all this stuff. You can get the whole season pass for $10 if you want to. So if you don't want to...
That's a pretty good price.
Yeah. And so if you... And again, I had unlocked most of the stuff that I actually wanted from the season pass in the first, 3 or 4 days. Literally. I got most of the important stuff in less than a week of playing the game. And if you want to spend the $10, you'll get everything, and you don't have to actually grind your way through it. But it's not even really grinding. If you're a decent player, every 2 or 3 matches, you get a new reward. It's just kind of the way that they're scaled or whatever. So Ghost is the big new operator in Season 2. There are 4 new maps. Rust, which is, I believe, also from Modern Warfare 2. Is the throwback, the legacy map that they're including. And then there are 3 brand new ones. There's one map that's kind of like a Walmart. It's called Atlas Superstore. That's available today on launch day. There's another one called Zakev Boneyard, and that's specifically a ground war map. Have you played this at all?
Barely at launch. I've played ground war mode.
Okay.
In other ones.
It's Battlefield, basically.
Battlefield, yeah.
And they have vehicles this time. So that map is specifically just for that. There's another one called Candor Hideout. That is a timed map. That does not come out until mid-season, so I'm guessing in 2 or 3 weeks. And then there's another map called Bazaar, and that's available on launch day. And again, like I said, you can buy the whole pass for $10, or you earn, as you play the game, you earn COD points, and that's the virtual currency inside the game that you pay real money for. You can earn some of those throughout the season. And in fact, I am at 1,000 COD points in the game, so I could actually buy Season 2 if I wanted to, free, and get all that stuff right away if I wanted to unlock it right away.
So how long did it take you to get those 1,000 points?
Pretty much the whole season. And in fact, they kind of set it up that way. You'll get...
It's sort of like Fortnite.
It is. It's very much like Fortnite.
If you play a reasonable amount, you will be able to afford the next season.
Yep, and that's exactly how it works. Literally, last week, they just gave me 300 COD points. And I was like, what's that for? And then I noticed it. I went from 700 to 1,000. That was basically them just saying, you've played enough. Here's enough COD points so that you can buy Season 2. So I just, I've been pretty critical of this game in general. I still am not a huge fan of the gameplay, and I still prefer to play Black Ops over this game. But the way that they're handling their DLC and their season passes is amazing. And it's, in all honesty, the way every game should be going forward. I know it won't happen that way. It's definitely not going to happen on mobile, that's for sure. But they have set an excellent example with this game for how you should handle post-launch updates, post-launch DLC, expansions, and things like that. I hope that because this game is so big that others will follow suit. I think it's more likely that others will say the reason they can do it is because they're so big. And they sell 20 million copies of the game. They should be able to give everything away for free. So it'll be interesting to see if this actually does end up affecting how other games handle their season passes. But to me, look, if I'm going to criticize something, I want to keep an even keel, and I want to give credit where it's due whenever they do something good with the game, and they have absolutely nailed the post-launch support for Call of Duty Modern Warfare. And as most of you probably know who are playing this, that's really what matters, because when you get this game, you play the campaign, it's over in 5 hours. If you're going to stick with it, you're going to play multiplayer, and that's what most people are doing, working through the season passes. So kudos. I feel like Infinity Ward did an excellent job designing that part of the game. I'm still not a fan of the gameplay. I still think there's a ton of issues with the game. The spawns are still all jacked up, and the maps are still goofy. But for people who are going to stick with this game and keep playing it and try to grind through and earn new content, I think you're going to be very happy with it. And if you played this at launch and haven't come back to it, the other thing I would say is come back and play, because you have all the maps from Season 1 in addition to the launch maps. And now you have 3 brand new maps. They just came with Season 2. Another one's going to launch in a couple weeks. At least come back for a week and start playing through the new maps and learn them, because one thing I will say...
If you can download everything, this thing, I deleted this thing because it got too big. I'm
sure it's
it's
120 some gigs now. 120 some gigs. When you download like a new map, it's 12 gigs. It's insane.
Meanwhile, Days Gone just halved its file size.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah. Probably found a new way to compress textures or something. And
so is there there's no Battle Royale yet?
Yeah. Oh, no, not in this. I mean, there's the Black Ops Battle Royale.
But
no, they haven't released one for this yet.
Okay.
Just Ground War, which I think is enough to tie people over until they figure out how to do a Battle Royale mode. They may not need to. I mean, my guess is the Battle Royale from Black Ops ends up becoming free. And then they just start selling cosmetics around it. I'm surprised they haven't done that already, to be honest with you, because, Modern Warfare has been out now for 3 or 4 months. So I am kind of surprised that hasn't happened already. So maybe they are working on a Battle Royale for this. It could be possible. We still haven't seen the Battle Royale for Battlefield.
Yeah. God, that was... How long is that taking?
Yeah. Well, I think they're just going to bail at this point.
Seems like it.
I just think that at this point they're just like, it's not worth it.
EA, what's going on over there?
I don't know. But, yeah, and what's going on at DICE more specifically?
Yeah.
I mean...
I guess all hope rests on Vince Zampella at this point.
Vince is saying the Battle Royale is all but
and
confirmed now. So it sounds like it is coming.
With his new studio, and see what they make.
Yeah.
Hope they got that Star Wars game I keep speculating about in there somewhere.
Yeah, I think Battlefield's Battle Royale did come out, but they haven't supported it the way that they had initially said they were going to.
Yeah, I think I vaguely remembered someone talking about it.
I feel like playing Domination in that game is like playing Battle Royale, because you run around for like 10 minutes and never see anyone. That's a big reason why I've stopped playing Battlefield. To me, there's just too much downtime. And I think if you play a lot of Call of Duty, it's more obvious because there's like no downtime. Literally in this game, you can spawn and there's an enemy right next to you and he shoots you in the head. So there's no downtime whatsoever. But again, I try to reward games when they do things right, and I'm going to tell you guys when there's things wrong with them. But this is one case where a game has done something really well, and if you've lapsed on this game, I highly recommend going back today and give it a go for a couple days and see if you can get re-engaged. But that's it. Call of Duty Modern Warfare Season 2 live now across all platforms. All right, let's move on. I'm going to talk next about Ubisoft. Ubisoft, the destroyer of many a video game fantasy draft. They are probably the least reliable publisher for release dates at this point. It's also not very...
For a pretty good reason, though.
For a good reason. It's also not very specific with its release dates, usually. Like, you don't usually get that hard date until, like, a few months before they know it's going to happen. Usually they're just like, this quarter... Well, Ubisoft just put out its financials, and it did that again. But... I think most people would view this as good news. And this is that Ubisoft is saying it's going to have 5 AAA games available before April 2021. So by the end of this fiscal year, it's going to have 5 AAA games ready to roll on the market. So when I first heard that, I was like, holy crap, 5 games in like a 12-month span? That's awesome. But then... I started taking inventory of the games that Ubisoft has announced that are currently in development, and I realized, holy crap, there's some weird stuff going on here. So we figured, at first they didn't even share what the 5 games were that were going to come out. They shared 3 of them, and then people through sleuthing have kind of figured out what the other 2 are. So the first game, Watch Dogs Legion, that's
pretty obvious.
Got to come out this year.
Yeah.
It got to, right?
I hope so.
I'm
for the
starting
sake
to wonder.
Of my fantasy team.
Yeah, I'm really starting to wonder though if it's going to make it. It's starting to look a little shaky as to whether it's going to make it.
That's one of my alternates. I might end up needing to use the other alternate because of my first alternate.
Right. What's your other alternate? I forgot.
I don't remember.
You don't remember either. I don't feel so bad then if you don't remember. So yeah, obviously this game has been in development for a while. It hasn't been a known quantity for all that long as far as officially.
Not since E3. I mean E3. Although, I think there were some good guesses. I mean, we knew it was in London for a few months before that.
Yep.
And that it was going to be kind of, dystopian, like, Big Brother kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think Kotaku broke some of that stuff.
And I think there was stuff about how there was no main character.
Right.
Early on.
Yeah, and people couldn't figure out what the hell that meant. They're like, wait a minute, how is there no main character? And then at E3, we finally figured out what that is, and that you can play as anyone.
Yeah. You kind of
at least
it seems like you kind of play as an idea.
Yeah, we'll see if that works, man. I don't know.
I like the idea.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
The freedom that, but again, it
has
to be implemented properly.
Yeah, I'm really worried about the execution.
Although to be fair, if I had to pick, I prefer that Breakpoint be the one they had to learn the hard lesson about exexecution on and get this one right.
Agree 1,000%, because it's just another shooter.
Right, and this one
another Ubisoft shooter.
This one could be
less.
really special if they nail it.
Absolutely. Gods and Monsters was one of the games that they said is coming, which I was kind of surprised that they would get out on a limb and say, yeah, this is one of them.
Yeah, this I mean, like, I get it. It makes sense. It looks like they're basically repurposing Odyssey into like a more Zelda-ish looking art style. But just with Ubisoft's history, this would not have shocked me if it just sort of vanished into the ether.
Like forever.
Like if it's Skull and Bones did.
Yeah. Well, actually, we're getting to that.
Yeah.
So Gods and Monsters, even though all we have is this trailer that is like 15 seconds long, it is coming in the next fiscal year, allegedly.
I mean, cool.
I'm so excited for it. Yeah, I'm really into it. But I just don't know if I trust that or not, to be honest. Then the final game that they officially said is coming the next fiscal year, Rainbow Six Quarantine. Another game that we have very little about. There's one like kind of...
Although, is there much to know in general, like, about it anyway?
Probably
like,
not.
It's just Rainbow Six with zombies.
Well,
really?
I mean, it's like a cooperative survival shooter against zombies, which doesn't really fit the IP at all.
No, but you're trying to fill that niche that Valve refuses to fill with Left 4 Dead 3.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it just refuses to make another game. And this should have really high production. I mean, we're getting a lot of these types of games from small developers right now. It's like every month there's a new one. Yeah. There's some zombie, it's a Left 4 Dead.
It seems like a new Walking Dead game sneaks out about every 5 weeks at this point.
They're starting to run out, though. I just looked in the database on Sifted the other day, and once Saints and Sinners came out, there's only like 2 more dangling out there.
Oh, is that all?
Well, there were like 5 for like a long time. But you're right, man. They really milked that license for all it's worth. I can't even tell anymore whether games are based on the TV show or the digital you can't even tell anymore. So I guess I'm a little surprised that they would have that much confidence that Quarantine's going to make it. We haven't seen squat from the game. We saw a trailer at E3, and we haven't heard anything about it since. And then the other 2 games that people figured out through deduction and reporting is Assassin's Creed Ragnarok, which is the Assassin's Creed. It takes place in...
Or whatever it's called.
Whatever it ends up being called. That's kind of the working title that the press has made up.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I think that was from a fake leak.
It was, yeah. But all information so far is still pointing to the fact that it is set in sort of the Viking era.
Yeah, it seems like it's definitely going to be Vikings.
Yep. And then the other one is a new Far Cry. Do you think it'll be like Far Cry 6, or do you think it'll be a side sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it'll be Far Cry 6. We already got the side thing for Far Cry 5.
Yeah.
The New Dawn.
Yep. Which did terrible.
It bombed hard. So they might, I don't know. Like, I think that the lesson of New Dawn may not be like, oh, nobody wants side Far Cry stuff, but it might be like, if you're going to do side Far Cry stuff, you got to make it crazier than that.
Yeah. Like, it was pretty tame, actually, now that I think about it.
I mean, it's a post-nuclear apocalypse, like, jump forward whole thing. But like, I think in terms of like Far Cry, I mean, when you compare that to Primal and Blood Dragon, like, it's pretty samey compared to its numbered equivalent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that is kind of what they do. Usually, the side stories kind of stretch the limits of the IP.
Just off in crazy town.
Which is great. That's what you want.
And like, I was excited to see them kind of continue the story for once, but I feel like after playing it, that was probably not I think I'd rather have some kind of gonzo weird idea instead. Just using the same map and assets. I think that's worked better for them.
I agree. So those are the 5 games. Again, I'll run down them really quickly. Watch Dogs Legion, Gods and Monsters, Rainbow Six Quarantine, Assassin's Creed Ragnarok, and Far Cry probably 6.
Yeah, although I wonder what the setting and what the premise would be for Far Cry 6, especially in the world and climate we're in right now versus Ubisoft's continued insistence that they don't do political games right before they're about to put out a basically 1984 by way of like Brexit
Yep.
game and Watch Dogs Legion. And
I mean, after the stuff they put out the last couple years, I mean...
Yeah, I mean, all this
They've
stuff...
all
I mean,
pushed
look,
it.
Tom Clancy games are political by nature. Like,
Yeah.
there's, I mean, even the most shallow imaginable way, but, like, you're still... I mean, Breakpoint still has political themes in it.
Yeah, for sure.
So...
Now,
It'd be nice to see them embrace that at some point, because I think Far Cry could be a very interesting series if they put some balls on it again.
I'd
You know
agree.
what I mean?
Yep. Okay, so those are the games that they are confirmed to be coming in the next year. But some of those were a little surprising. But what was most surprising to me is the games that were not mentioned and are not coming in the next fiscal year. And we're talking really, it's the next like 14 months, because we're only in February.
Yeah.
We're talking April of next year. Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Well, I didn't expect to see that this fiscal.
You didn't?
No, that thing is in maybe end of next year.
I mean, we now know that it is not coming this generation.
Oh, yeah.
It is a PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X game.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's been in development for a really long time.
Well, it depends. Like this version, I don't know how long it's been. Like
Yeah.
2-3 years, maybe.
Yeah, it could be.
It seems like there's probably been at least two other versions of this game over the years. I mean, I don't know.
There's
like,
there was one that actually looked like
Beyond Good and Evil. I mean, like I don't know if calling this Beyond Good and Evil 2 is the most sensible thing to do, but leaving aside my expectations of what a Beyond Good and Evil sequel would be, this thing looks awesome.
It
like
does,
this is exact. Like this is like you might as well be making this for me. So take your time, get it right. Make something great. Like I don't care how long it takes. Like
it's just insane that there's this much media out there. The game looks like all the systems are in place already.
I don't think it does. I think this thing's way bigger than we think.
Oh, I'm sure it's
And
gonna be
like
gigantic.
they need to make sure all this stuff works together. And like you've seen games come out that have similar. You know, I'm sure they've taken lessons from like how Hello Games has updated No Man's Sky. I'm sure they took a hard look at Journey to the Savage Planet. I mean, there's the kind of the space exploration sort of different systems working together, like game subgenre has become a real thing. And then you've still got the kind of the French space opera element to this that is really unique to what they're doing. Like there's a lot of moving parts here, and it doesn't surprise me that they're taking their time to get it right.
Well, it doesn't surprise me at all because it's Michel Ancel.
Right.
he doesn't do anything fast.
No, and we'll just hope that it turns out better than Ancestors did.
Yes, please.
And, even though they both
low bar.
involve simian
They do,
primates
actually,
in a
interestingly
strong
enough.
role.
Yep.
But I mean, all this stuff looks amazing.
It does. Yeah.
It
It just seems like it's farther along than I guess it is.
I mean, it looks like they finally figured out what the individual systems are. I don't think you necessarily have got the whole solar system together and have figured out why and how each system works with all the other systems. Like, I would imagine there's a lot of tweaking happening in terms of making this thing sing with itself.
Well, they're going to have plenty of time to do it.
Yeah.
Because
Good,
it's not coming
good.
for the next 14 months.
I am fine with that. Learn how to use the new hardware, get it all there. Like, give me something I love, more like the way I loved Horizon or something like that. Great.
Next up on the list of MIA,
Mm-hmm.
Splinter Cell. Do you think at this point, like, this is just people's wishful thinking, trying to make this come into being?
I don't know. I feel like the property's bubbling around in there somewhere. I mean, I can't imagine they're not thinking about it. They did do the Wildlands DLC with Sam Fisher, and Michael Ironside's back in action doing the voice again. Like, I mean, you have to be working on something, but it's just a matter of like figuring out why do you make a new Splinter Cell. Like, a new Splinter Cell has to offer something different than the other Tom Clancy properties and give a good, it basically has to justify its existence. And I can imagine it might be taking a while. Also, their slate's pretty full. This I imagine would be a next gen game. So we might see Sam Fisher. As long as Michael Ironside's up for it, I'm in for a new Sam Fisher game whenever they get to it. But
I'll be honest, I really don't care if it ever comes back.
I don't, but like,
I really don't. Like,
I think there's plenty of man shooters, Tom Clancy gun
Stealthy,
content. It's fine. Last thing I need is another game I have to sneak around behind boxes for. But I do like Sam Fisher as a character. I do like the Splinter Cell concept. If they were going to maybe do something closer to. You remember the original concept demos they were showing of when they were kind of rebooted it with like where he was wanted Conviction, I think it was.
Yep.
And
Talking about that scene in the bathroom where he smashes that dude's head on the
yeah,
urinal.
it was more of like an on the run sort of game,
Yeah.
and like it became a much more standard action game by the time it came out. But if they could kind of and I think a lot of the ideas that they had in that original demo ended up in Watch Dogs.
That's probably true. I mean, that happens at Ubi a lot.
Yeah. They cannibalize the ideas from failed projects into something else.
Because they're all working together
you might as well.
on all the projects.
That's actually a compliment, I would say.
Absolutely.
About their workflow and communication. But if they can figure out a reason to bring Sam back and why this game should exist, I do like the character, and I would be happy to hear Michael Ironside read the phone book, so I don't care. I'm into that. It's just like, my main question about a new Splinter Cell is like, okay, why are you making a new Splinter Cell?
Yeah.
Especially in an era where I feel like that IP probably doesn't have the hook or the clout that it once did.
I mean, most modern gamers.
So what are you doing? What are you doing with this that makes people excited?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, they need to give me a reason for me to care about another Splinter Cell, because right now I don't.
Right.
I just simply don't. Here may be the biggest surprise of all. You said it earlier, Skull and Bones. Is this game canceled, Matt?
I don't think so.
It was shown at E3 2 years ago
Yep.
as one of Ubisoft's pillar projects, and had a release date. And then it didn't make its release date, and now it's just like it doesn't even exist anymore. Yeah. Like, they haven't said anything about it in forever. There hasn't been a new piece of media released for it. It wasn't mentioned in their quarterly report.
Yeah. I think it still exists. They're just, again, trying to figure it out. Like, and the thing is, I don't know what they're trying to figure out, because I guess it's more of a multiplayer. It feels like what we saw of it feels like it's kind of the For Honor of pirate ship combat. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
it feels like that was.
I think when they first showed it, they tried to sell it as primarily a single player game. No,
I got the impression it was multiplayer.
Well, no. Then the next year when it was at E3, that's when it looked because they set up all the multiplayer kiosks in their booth, and I was like, oh, wait a minute! Like, I didn't even know this was going to have multiplayer. So. I think they're trying. I think they know, like most developers these days, that where you're going to make your money is in multiplayer. People buying cosmetics and pirate hats and all this silly crap that people spend money for. And maybe that's what they're doing, is they're trying to reorganize the game so that it's.
I think also maybe part of it might be maybe they couldn't get it to work on current gen systems.
Possible.
Like, they might need the next gen power for.
They always showed it running on PC.
Yeah.
Every time they showed it, it was running on a PC.
So just basically bide your time, wait for the new systems, and get something out in 2021.
I think it might be canceled.
I don't think so. The beta's still got signups going.
Does it?
Yeah. Like it's. I'm 90% sure that game still exists.
Okay, that's encouraging. Here's another one, though. I wonder if you think this one still exists.
I mean, I'm not saying it won't be canceled eventually.
Yeah.
But like right now, I think they are
still in
working.
development.
I think they're just trying to wait out the generational transition right now.
Last up of the games that are missing in action, Roller Champions.
God, I forgot about this until I saw it on the sheet today.
Was
this last E3? Was this?
I think it was it was last E3.
Yeah.
It was debuted like the day before Ubisoft's press conference or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's right.
Or maybe
That's
it
right.
leaked even.
I think it leaked. Yeah, because I think Eve's like made a comment about it leaking.
Yeah, so it's a roller derby game that's online multiplayer focused.
Sure, why not?
Again, they show this and it just disappears into thin air, and now it's not coming out for another 14 months from today. Like, this game doesn't look that complicated.
But how will you meet the demand for the online roller derby audience? I don't know.
They're gonna have to go elsewhere for their fix, Matt.
I'm not gonna lie. I've been to some roller derbies. It's fun, but like, do I want to play like some kind of weird permutation? I don't. It's weird. Like, this had to be like For Honor. I imagine this is somebody's pet project that somehow got greenlit. This is as confusing to me as Steep.
Yeah,
Let's put it that way.
Actually, that's a very good analogy. I mean, coming from the same publisher as well.
Right. It's like I'm not saying it wouldn't be fun, but I am confused.
I wouldn't even be surprised if we find out that it's like created by the same team.
I wondered that. I wondered if there's some kind of some kind of runaway core of like action sports fans that just refuse to die in the bowels of Ubisoft somewhere.
Well, they supported Steep for forever.
Still
there's like
stuff out
DLC coming out for it. Like, I don't know anybody who played that game. Nobody, not one.
But I think I own like 2 copies of it because of like the various bundles and freebie things.
Yeah, they couldn't give that game away. So what do you think about Roller Champions? Think we'll ever see that one?
I think we might.
It's such a simple game. You'd think they wouldn't cancel it. Like, their expectations for it have to be low.
Right. Sure, it might. God, I don't care.
I don't.
I really don't.
Yeah.
Like, it can come out, it can not come out. I probably won't ever play it.
It's like Rocket League with
Yeah, I imagine
roller derby.
I can't imagine Rocket League wasn't brought up in the pitch meeting.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. They're like, how can we make a game like Rocket League? What about roller derby?
What about roller derby? Let's turn on the Ocho and check it out.
It was big in 1977. That's really the last time people cared about roller derby.
No, it was big for a while.
In the 80s.
About 10 years ago in LA, there was a big roller derby thing. Yeah,
I mean, like on TV and stuff.
On TV, sure, but I'm just like, in local clubs and stuff. Like, there was a period because that was a period where I was like doing like online dating stuff around 2010, and like almost everyone I got matched with had like roller derby photos.
Really?
Like, they were all doing roller derby.
Hilarious. What is it about the roller derby girls, man?
I don't know. I like a girl that can mix it up on the track, I guess. I don't know.
Apparently.
I still don't understand it. Like I watched it again last year. Last year, the year before, it was actually on the Ocho for a while, and I was like, I don't get any of what I'm looking at.
I don't know what the rules are either.
I was as confused as when I tried to watch cricket when I was in
that's
London.
That's also hard to follow. Yeah.
Although I understood cricket after like 2 days, and I still don't understand roller
after
derby.
Like 20 years. Yeah. Roller derby was on TV back in the 80s.
Yeah,
right in
that
same era when Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, was on TV.
Well, I mean, like you had like roller babies and all like you like the roller derby thing. I think there was even Rollerball, and, the movie about
which was pretty good.
Not to be confused with Solar Babies, which is a very different film, but also involves roller skates.
Yeah.
Go look that one up, kids.
Yeah, Rollerball was like Slapshot in the future.
Yeah.
Basically, is what that movie is.
Yeah. Kickboxing, sport of the future.
Yeah. So that's it. That's the next 14 months from Ubisoft.
I want my $2.
So yeah, some big
that's
stuff.
The other John.
Yeah,
that's the other movie. But,
yeah.
But we want our $2 from Twitch Prime.
Yeah. So 5 games coming from Ubi in the next 14 months. That seems about right. Yeah. I just think it feels like Ubisoft announced.
Sure could use one of those right about now.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Absolutely. It would have been nice to
Wow. I mean, I couldn't.
How nice would it have been to play Watch Dogs Legion?
Yeah.
Like this month or last month.
Yeah.
It would have sold huge, but
just like the first one.
Didn't make it.
Came out, and what did that come out in like May?
March, I think.
March or May. It was one of the M months.
Yeah.
But it had no competition.
Nope.
And it was just free and clear. It sold a ton.
It works. It absolutely
But
works.
If it's not ready, it's not ready.
But don't count on seeing Beyond Good and Evil 2, Splinter Cell, Skull and Bones, or Roller Champions for a long time.
Well, Division 2 is like $2.99 right now or something crazy low price.
You can basically get it for free right now.
I'll probably do that.
Yeah,
that's right.
I mean, that is right. Like they should sell it for $3 because it's a game as a service. You're going to make money off the people if they get hooked on it anyway. Like it probably should be free to start right now. If you ask me, it didn't do well out of the gate anyway, so you might as well get as many players in there as you can.
Pretty close. I feel like you have to charge some kind of nominal thing just to not freak the people who paid $50 or $60 for it out.
It's been a long time though.
When did it come out?
Like a year ago.
Was it a year? Like last spring?
Yeah. So it's been a while. They could probably get away with it at this point.
I might finally play it for $2.99 or whatever it is.
It's worth $2.99. I actually had a lot of fun with it. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Resident Evil on Netflix. Rumors have been swirling around about this for at least a year. And finally, Netflix screwed up. And it published the description for the show on its database. And Internet Hawks found it. And they have it. And now we know for sure that there is a Resident Evil TV show coming to Netflix. The rumor right now is like 2021. It doesn't look like it's coming this year. They're saying that there's going to be 8 hour-long episodes, so 8 hours of content in total. It does not take place in Raccoon City. Instead, it takes place in a fictional Maryland town. Although it sounds
Badgerville.
Yeah, it's something like Clearfield or something like that. It's just some generic name. But it does sound like you're going to be able to go to Washington, D.C., or Washington, D.C. is just adjacent. And then they said another part of it's going to take place in an insane asylum as well.
That's an original setting.
Yeah.
Horror movie.
I mean, I'd rather probably have a mansion, if you ask me. Umbrella is going to be a part of the story. They are the main antagonists in the show. We've watched a lot of really bad Resident Evil films over the last decade and a half.
Yep.
Is there anything that convinces you, maybe The Witcher, that this might be different?
Well, I mean, I would not be shocked that if this is better than any of the Anderson films. I mean, the first couple of those, I guess, were stupid fun, but after a certain point, you're like, dude,
Yeah.
You got to let it go.
They were bad.
So I'm sure it probably might be better than that. I mean, it's interesting that it's going to be like a really distant sequel because it's supposed to be like 25 years after the
26 years after the discovery of the T virus.
Yeah. So like you're going to be looking kind of, one of the reasons I'm sure it's not in Raccoon City is because it's kind of in the aftermath of what happened in Resident Evil.
Which Resident Evil debuted the T virus? I don't remember.
That's the original.
Is that is the T virus the
T
original
virus
one?
is the thing they were working on originally. Yeah.
Okay, so this would be set 26 years after the first Resident Evil.
Resident Evil. So
yeah. So everyone in the first Resident Evil is elderly.
Yeah, we're gonna get like a
they're gonna be walkers.
Like a Jill and Chris are in their 50s here.
I mean, they literally might be. I wonder if they'll be like old people in the TV show.
Maybe.
So again, what
Jill Valentine, played by Sigourney Weaver, is something I can get behind.
Does the overall quality of Netflix original content kind of give you hope?
No, because I find that varies drastically between production team to production team. And also, I think they have only recently started doing things that don't have the Netflix mid-season sag. I think Stranger Things 3 was the first season of that show to figure out how to
keep it interesting.
How to get a story that lasts the actual number of episodes they have to fill. Netflix stuff for me very, very often just is like feels like 4 episodes of story stretched out to 8 or 13. The Marvel shows had a problem with that. The early Stranger Things stuff had a problem with that. House of Cards occasionally had a problem with that. I don't think The Witcher does. The Witcher actually did have a storyline that kept it rolling for the most part.
I think it helped too that the show was kind of self-contained.
Yeah. And they've done better recently, but again, it's kind of a case-by-case thing to me. Also, like, horror bores me easily, so like I don't, you better come up with another good reason for me to watch another goddamn zombie thing.
Yeah.
So
we've reached a level of saturation.
So I mean, okay, so if they're going off 1998, 26 years later, we're talking about in the future for us too.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could be. You're talking about 2024.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny how the timeline's kind of working out in real life.
Yeah,
because the first one came out in what, 97 in Japan?
Yeah, or 95.
Yeah, maybe it was earlier in Japan. Yeah,
I want to say spring 96. I think is when I played it in America. So I think it was earlier than that.
Yeah, so it's like following a real timeline of our lives. I am not convinced that it'll be something worth watching. I think my big fear with this is that it's really reliant on special effects and makeup. Mm-hmm. The Witcher, you could actually see with The Witcher how they smartly danced around not having to spend a ton of money on VFX. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling Season 2 is going to have a lot more now that it's a proven concept and they'll have a bigger budget.
I think we might see some real monsters in Season 2 of Witcher.
Right. I think this Season 1 of Resident Evil, though.
Yeah. You're going to see some zombies. You'll probably see Tyrant or Mr. X at some point.
Yeah.
Or some variant of that. But yeah, it's going to be surprising to me if they really nail it. But again, like the other thing about setting it so late is like you're giving the T virus time to have evolved and create these weird things. I mean, what are we? Are we looking at a world that has it under control, or are we looking at a world where there's areas you can't go because they're infested by these things
or whatever?
Like that would be interesting to me to see kind of what you would envision the Resident Evil world looking like a quarter century after the outbreak, because that's not really something that's been addressed too hard. You wonder if they're going to take into account
all the other games,
the events in 7.
Yeah,
are they building off all the games, or are they just sort of taking the basic idea of Resident Evil and
that seems to be the case?
Maybe.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the first season of this show is a lot of exposition and character development.
I mean, that's pretty much what all Netflix stuff does. A lot of standing around talking, and then everybody has to stand around and talk in different configurations about the thing that just happened, and then like one more thing happens the next episode, and then everybody has to stand around and talk about what happened with that thing. And
that's how you stretch them out.
That's pretty much that's pretty much how the Marvel shows went. But, and it's not coincidental, I don't think, that the Marvel shows have been taken away from that team.
Yeah, Daredevil season 1 was good.
Daredevil season 1 was good, but I think it did sag again. It didn't
like
really
2/3 of the way through.
Yeah, didn't really recapture my attention until the second to last episode, where you actually find out why he and Foggy are friends, which I thought was very well done. I could have used that earlier in the season, so I wasn't sitting there looking at these two characters and be like, why do they even like each other? I don't understand what this relationship's based on. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know who's making this. It could be someone that really knows
Yeah,
what they're
they've
doing.
been-
Also, keep in mind that Resident Evil has actually been around long enough that it is theoretically possible that the people who are in their 30s, like calling the shots on this show, are fans
They played
from when
it.
they were
Yeah,
kids.
they actually played the game.
So, like,
Yeah.
we could be dealing with a Sam Raimi Spider-Man situation here, where finally they got the property in the hands of someone that knows what it should be, or at least has a love of the material enough to kind of bring that through. I think that happened with The Witcher.
Yep.
Especially with Henry Cavill, who loves the books and
Yeah.
the games, and made sure that he was literally doing his The Witcher signs during the combat, even though the producers didn't want to, because it costs more money to have him shoot fire or knock people away. But he's like, this is part of it, and it has to be part of it.
What he
And
does,
so
yeah.
he was literally adding money to the budget through the fight choreography, because it's like, no, he should use the Ard sign here.
I love that.
And so you never know if they pick up people that really, but that's the other thing is, like, Resident Evil is such a disparate thing. Like, what even is true to Resident Evil at this point? Like, that's the hard
I
thing.
don't even know. I don't know.
So I don't know. Like, I think it's a giant coin flip at this point.
Yeah, I'll put it to you this way. I'm keeping my hopes low.
Yeah,
I've set my expectations really low. That way, maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. I think overall, though,
I think that's the way to roll with Resident Evil in general.
that's probably a good way to put it, actually. Even the games at this point. Depending on the types of games that you like or what you think Resident Evil should or should not be, every game is a roll of the dice. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've generally enjoyed every single one of them. I think going back to Code Veronica is a little hard now.
Code Veronica is unplayable now.
Yeah, but everything else, like along the way, I've enjoyed it, and I can even go back and give it a go. And
at
still,
the time,
Yeah.
Like, going back would be hard for most things pre-4.
Yep. That was kind of the breaking point for the franchise. That's when the franchise went beyond kind of gorehounds like
Beyond
me.
Raccoon City.
Seriously, do you care that it's not in Raccoon City? I guess they
No.
can't. I mean, if it's 26 years after.
Yeah, imagine Raccoon City is a smoking crater.
Yeah, there's like nothing left of it at this point
Yeah.
worth returning to, so I guess I can see why they did it that way. I would have preferred if they said it during RE4, but that's just me. I just think everything about RE4 is far more interesting than the stuff that we got in the other Resident Evil games, including Leon and the characters in it, but that does not appear that that's going to be the case. So, Resident Evil on Netflix, not coming until next year, so we're probably jumping the gun a little bit talking about it, but it's slow right now, and it's interesting to discuss what a serialized show might be based around this IP, because we've never seen it. We've seen movies, we've never seen a serialized TV show based on Resident Evil. So I'll keep my fingers crossed, but I'm keeping my expectations in check. That's absolutely true. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to talk next about, we're going to talk about System Shock 3, but we're really going to talk about the immersive sim. System Shock 3, it's been 20 plus years since System Shock 2 was released. System Shock, there's a couple franchises you could kind of thank for creating the immersive sim.
God, I hate that term.
Yeah, I know,
So
but
dumb.
but that's the way
I
things
mean, I know
work.
it's what people call it, but it's like
It's
immersive.
what fans
It
call
doesn't
it.
mean anything.
It doesn't
Like,
mean anything.
Every game tries to be immersive, and they're not really sims.
No.
like they're simming anything.
Well, I think what
really.
they say simulation, it means that you can just do things however you want instead of
Right,
a predetermined
but
way.
to me, it's just an action RPG.
Yeah,
Like, that's
it
all
is.
they are.
It
Like, I
is.
realize they're describing a kind of permutation of the action RPG that uses a first-person perspective, is made by a Western developer, and sort of like emphasizes choice over combat. But like, immersive sim?
Well,
and people think Metroidvania is a dumb name?
Well, look, it gives fans a way to talk about a very specific thing that they like. I mean, look at like music genres. Most people listen to electronic music, and they either call it EDM or techno. If you are into electronic music, all of that, there's a huge difference between techno and EDM. There's a huge difference between like disco house and hard house or tech house. You create these terms so that people who really care about something can discuss it.
Yeah,
But this in particular is kind of bled outside of those groups.
Yeah, I just find that like most of the names people come up with for like the weird subgenres of music are way cooler than immersive sim. Like,
like
it's just,
shoegaze or whatever, yeah.
Immersive sim just like makes me, it's just like it sounds like something you have to eat.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like it's like the genre equivalent of vegetables. It's just like it's like immersive sim. That's like the thing you eat to get to dessert. But it's just a boring name for what I think is a very interesting and exciting genre when it's done right.
I would argue that they probably should drop that name because it's doing it no favors.
Yeah. Well, most people I think who don't play them have never heard it.
Yeah,
and don't even know what that is.
That's
and
true.
I barely heard the term until a few years ago, and that was like, wait, what? You actually really call it that? Just call it a shock-alike or something. I don't know.
I mean, you were right first when you said action RPGs. That's what
Yeah.
they are. They're action RPGs. The RPG elements are a little deeper. You have a little bit more choice in how you go about things, but otherwise, they're just action RPGs.
There's just nothing. There's nothing particularly unique or defining about them beyond the perspective and the fact that so many of them are like System Shock and Deus Ex to really justify that. And these are the two words they use don't mean anything.
Yeah.
They don't apply properly. It doesn't define anything.
Well, the reason we're bringing this up is because System Shock 3, again, it's been 20-plus years since the last System Shock, has been in development now for a couple years, and we've got some pretty decent updates on the game. I mean, we're seeing a good bit of B-roll here right now from it. But this week, it was announced that the entire team has been let go on System Shock 3, and right now it's in hiatus, a.k.a. probably canceled. And why do you think that is, Matt?
I don't know.
Do you think it's the team? Do you think it's the genre?
Sounds like somebody lost funding.
Yeah, that seemed like what it was. Maybe they were taking too long.
Or somebody realized that this is probably not going to sell too well because really the only big name in this subgenre now is Bethesda, and they keep bombing.
Yeah, every one of them. And they're great games.
Yeah, even though Prey's great.
Dishonored,
no
great.
one cared.
Nobody cares. There's a crew of like 1 million, 5 people that buy these games, and they do buy all of them pretty much.
Yeah.
But that's not enough when you think about the development budgets.
That's too bad because, Shodan is one of the all-time great game villains.
Oh, for sure.
She's I think a lot of modern game villains owe a lot to her. To the point that maybe going back and playing System Shock 2 might feel like review if you've never played it before because she's been so influential.
Yeah.
That's still happening, I think, the remake.
It is.
Remake
Yeah,
of
it
that.
absolutely is. Yeah, that has not been affected by this at all. The remake of the first System Shock is still on the way. Do you think maybe that Warren Spector could have saved the project?
I don't know if Warren Spector's clout is really as big as it used to be. I feel like he lost a lot of
With Mickey?
currency with Epic Mickey, even though I did like both of those games a lot.
Yeah.
It just felt like a lot of stuff turned against him.
Well, I think a lot of it was people looked at him as kind of the immersive sim messiah. He kind of created the genre, to be honest, like the subgenre. And I think a lot of people looked at him.
And Howard Smith.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that a lot of people look to him as like the torchbearer for this subgenre, and then he kind of splinters off, and he has kids, and he starts to look at things a little bit differently. He's a big Disney fan, and the opportunity presents itself, and he does it. And I think you're right. I think a lot of the people who love this subgenre maybe felt a little betrayed or felt like, what, if he's not going to do it, who is going to do it? And then Arcane did step into the void.
Yeah, also when he was making Epic Mickey, like no one was making these games.
Yeah,
like he couldn't have made one of these if he wanted to.
No one would have funded it.
No.
Yeah, and now I don't think anyone will fund it either. So
yeah, the days that was pre-Kickstarter, so it wasn't really anything you could do about it.
To me, that's probably where the genre is going to be headed. Kickstarter, because there are 1 million people, I believe, who will prepay $60 or $50 for this game, and you have $50 million to build a game with.
I would say the last great hope of this subgenre is Vampire.
Yeah.
Coming
Masquerade.
The Masquerade. Bloodlines too. Like it's kind of the other golden child of that era of that kind of thing. And the new one, as far as we know, still coming, made by a lot of the same people that made the original.
Yeah.
Has an interesting hook in terms of the setting and the vampire element is something that's different from the usual kind of cyberpunk setting that these games tend to have. So I could see a possible breakout potential with that if it comes out at the right time and has the word of mouth. But who knows?
Are you even bummed that System Shock 3 is canceled?
A little bit. I like System Shock. I would have liked to have seen one with new ideas and sort of the lessons of the last 25 years applied to it. But who knows?
Maybe I should ask first if you think it's canceled. I do.
Hiatus is probably the more accurate. You'd always rescue it with more funding somewhere, but if the team's gone, getting everyone's going to very quickly have to try to find new jobs, and you can't get everyone back, and it's like
getting a new team up to speed with another.
It was sort of like the thing where people were saying like when the Netflix Marvel shows ended, and everyone's like, oh, we can still save Daredevil. He's like, yeah, but all those show teams got let go, released from their contracts. The cast was all let go from their contracts, and that means they all need to find new jobs. And you can never get that team back together again because everybody's got new schedules and new gigs.
It's like if somebody came to us and they're like, hey, we're going to relaunch X Play. Like, there's no way we could get that original team together to do the show. It's just impossible.
Everyone's moved on.
Yeah, everyone's doing other stuff, and it's the same thing with development. You can't sit around and not have a job.
You couldn't have done that 6 months after they let us go from that, let alone years later.
It's true.
But like if they were going to try to save it, I think that that they would have kept people on retainer in some way. Yep. But they didn't do that. Everybody's let go, and you got to eat.
Yeah, so. I mean, how do you bring a new team in there working with some other team's code? Like, you don't understand what any of their goals were, what they were working towards. Like, none of it.
No, I would say it's most likely dead.
Yep, I would agree. So I know we have a lot of immersive sim fans on Sifted, and I think that makes sense because we're a really hardcore gaming website. And I feel bad for those folks because they don't get many games. They don't have many opportunities to really play the genre that they love. And this was a big game for them coming up.
And they just don't. Deus Ex didn't do too well. The last, what was it?
Mankind Divided.
Mankind Divided. It just doesn't seem to have that genre. Just doesn't seem to have mainstream breakout appeal. But that's why I say vampire maybe because
vampires.
It's vampires. It's not. It's Deus Ex sort of set and System Shock sort of set a tone there, and it's like. It's just like the cyberpunk stuff is sort of like the easiest thing to do in that regard, especially in terms of upgrading the character. Yeah. And maybe that cyberpunk is hard to sell to something. Cyberpunk 2077 notwithstanding, Cyberpunk 2077 is like one of the first times I think that genre is really going to break out into the mainstream since The Matrix.
And the only reason that's happening is because it's being created by CD Projekt.
CD Projekt Red. And Keanu Reeves.
Right. But if it was made
Keanu Reeves is apparently the cyberpunk trick. Like if you want a cyberpunk thing to do, you got to put Keanu Reeves in it.
But I mean, if you look at if this game was if even Cyberpunk 2077 was made by some little indie team, we would have looked at it and been like, "Oh, damn! Like, wow, that team's doing something amazing." It would not be what it is.
No,
it
would not be the
game of the forever.
The game,
whatever
it would not be the first game to be discussed online more than Fortnite for a day.
Yeah,
it
just wouldn't happen. So, unfortunately, you think the genre is going away, Matt? I mean, there's not much to prop it up at this point.
I think it'll still be around. It's not.
You think it'll be like a lot of other genres that aren't that commercially viable anymore, and it's just like stuff indie developers start tackling?
Something like that. I mean, and every once in a while you get a larger, like Vampire pop up. Square will probably try another Deus Ex at some point.
I don't know.
Ubisoft might make another make one someday. That'd be interesting to see.
I don't think Bethesda will make another one.
I don't know what else you would do with a couple of those teams, but I think Human Head's gone, right?
Yeah, and I think Arcane even is starting to work on other stuff across Bethesda.
Yeah.
They're not just focusing on their own projects anymore. And if Arcane goes, that's a really tough blow to that genre for sure. I mean, they are the ones that are keeping it alive almost single-handedly right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know, folks. I do feel bad for you guys if you're fans of this subgenre. I know that people really like it, and like a lot of people will say it's my favorite genre if they're into them. But
I mean, we're still probably going to get another BioShock at some point.
Yeah, I mean, do you put that in that category?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you?
Not like. I mean, it's kind of a light almost, like especially BioShock 1. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason I think BioShock can't be that. It's definitely a descendant.
Yeah,
it's got Shock in the title for a reason.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll see what BioShock 3 ends up being.
But. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I could agree with that. But I think it's just a small
is it
part
as
of what BioShock is.
Yeah, but is it as complex as like a Deus Ex? No. But I think it's
a happy medium kind of.
I think it's the same species.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about we're going to talk about a couple things in one topic. First of all, we're going to talk about Rod Ferguson leaving the Coalition and the Gears 5 team, to go work at Blizzard to finish Diablo 4. So, for those of you who don't know, Rod, his nickname inside the industry is the Closer.
Yeah.
he is known to go into troubled projects, whip the team into shape really quick, and ship the game.
Most notably, BioShock Infinite.
Yeah, actually. Yeah, he went there pretty much just to do that.
Just
it's
to
like
do
a
that.
ringer.
And he got it out in a year.
And he did. And it was that game was like, that was almost canceled.
Yeah, it was real close.
Yeah, I mean, it was right on the fringe. And a lot of people complained because it didn't end up being what was kind of marketed at first, but that's because they had to get the game done. And let's be honest, Irrational was irrational. Like, they just thought they could do things in the game that they weren't capable of doing. So Rod came in, was like, look, this is the stuff we're doing right. We're going to focus on this. The game won't be as long. It won't have some stuff that you guys have promised, but it'll be a good game and a fun game. And it was. Like, I really enjoyed BioShock Infinite.
I think you can definitely tell a ton of stuff ended up on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it has one or two too many shootouts in the last third of it. But like,
it turns into a shooter at the end. Yeah. And again, Rod, he's like, well, let's just put another shooting section in here. Yeah.
It's better than it not existing.
Yeah.
But I do think, like, you can see the opening of BioShock Infinite hints at a far more nuanced and thoughtful story with themes of racism and class warfare and all this stuff that just go away.
I mean, you get it at the beginning, like some of the barkers and things like that. Some of those,
and the choice whether to throw the baseball at the guy, like,
but then
and
it's gone,
and it just disappears. And you can see that Rod must have come in and been like, okay, the story of this game is Elizabeth and you bonding over becoming what you become.
Yeah,
and that's what we're going to focus on. That's the storyline. That's the through line of the whole game. Focus on that and nothing else, and get it done.
Yeah.
And it got done.
Yeah,
like that was
and
it.
It was a good game.
That's what it had to be.
It reviewed very well. It sold very well, and you can attribute that to Rod Ferguson. So then Microsoft, obviously, Cliff Bleszinski decides,
and he came from Epic. He came from Gears, the Gears stuff,
from the Gears team
to do that.
Yep. And so obviously with Cliff Bleszinski deciding that he didn't really want to be a part of it anymore, and Microsoft opening a new studio to kind of get Gears, Microsoft bought the IP from Epic, or did they already own the IP?
They bought it.
They bought it from Epic.
They outright bought the Gears IP.
So he moves to work with Microsoft to continue working on the IP that he had worked on for a long time.
Yeah.
And he had just taken like a couple-year hiatus to work on BioShock. And he cranks out a couple Gears of Wars games right on schedule. I don't know if I would say they're excellent games. They're definitely good.
I think Gears 5 comes pretty close.
Yeah. I mean, I like them both, to be honest with you. I mean, both games are good. I think, kind of the cat is out of the bag for Gears at this point, so he didn't have the advantage of surprise like you had with kind of the first couple entries. It's a known quantity right now. But there's
I think that's Gears' like biggest weakness right now is frankly that it's Gears.
Yeah.
We know what it is. We know what it can be, and like if you can't really go outside the lines too much without making it not Gears anymore.
Yep. But I'll say this, like it's still Gears.
Yeah.
Like he didn't go to Microsoft and just completely flip the script and turn it into something that it's not. I thought he was pretty true to the tone and
yeah. I think Gears has made the transition in that regard way better than Halo has.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the output for Gears on Xbox One, it's no comparison.
No.
So kudos to him. Like he did a good. They had to set up a brand new studio to do this. So he goes in, hires everybody, sets up everything, builds the studio, and still gets a couple excellent Gears games out.
Off the back of a series that already had 4 entries that we forget about the 4th one sometimes, but like
yeah.
I mean, that's not easy to follow. It's a tough act to follow. Halo had the same problem, and they did not manage it nearly as well as the Coalition did.
Yep. So Rod, after basically saving Gears of War and making sure that it's still relevant for years to come,
and gorgeous. Look at the faces in this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at that.
I know. And it's, I mean, on my base Xbox One, it looks like that. That's the crazy part. Like, the base Xbox One looks amazing still for this game. So anyway, I'm sure Blizzard knew his reputation very well. And it appears that Diablo 4 was in deep trouble. Because
just like everything else at Blizzard.
Yeah, because they headhunted him and hired him away. And he's moving down here to Southern California to take over for Diablo 4.
I mean, if there's one man you would want to do that.
Well, I would say if there's one man that you would want to come in and finish the game, yeah, it's him. If there's one man I would want to be the creative force behind Diablo 4, he would probably not be my first choice.
Who would?
But my assumption is that the people who know that very well inside Blizzard are still there. At least that's my hope.
But also, like, I feel like even this early in the project, where they're talking about how it's not soon, even Blizzard soon. You are looking down the track and being like, we need to make sure this thing comes in this decade, basically.
Yeah.
And I
don't think Rod would go there if he was like, this is going to take 5 years. Like, I just thought that's just not him.
I think
he's never worked on anything that long.
No, but I also feel like it could be something like Blizzard's like, this is going to take 5-6 years, and maybe they talk to Rod about it. Rod's like, I can get that done for you. I can name that tune in 3 notes. You know?
It's possible. You may be right.
Because part of it is like, he came in with BioShock was a very, I think, bloated project, and I think he came in to just cut the fat off of it. In this one, I think his specialty is organization and streamlining, and I think just about anybody who's played games for as long as he has or we have knows what Diablo should be.
Yeah,
and someone who's as good at organization, as good at knowing what's a waste of time and what's a valuable use of time, like as Rod I think he could just step into that Diablo 4 project and be like, all right, this is Diablo. This isn't Diablo. Why are we doing this? Why aren't we doing this? This needs to be prioritized. Don't worry about this. Like he can
cut the fat pretty quick.
He can make that thing work like a well-oiled machine, and he could and that's always, from my understanding, kind of been his specialty even in the old Gears games, where like Cliff was dealing with sort of the creative
ideas
and the crazy ideas and what made it Gears and sort of the destroyed beauty look of everything. And Rod was the one who made sure it happened,
right? Or told him that it can't happen because we have a production schedule that needs to be met,
right? And that's, I think, exactly what Blizzard needs right now. And as we talked about before, Diablo 4 needs to nail it out of the gate. You cannot have another Diablo 3 situation where you have to get rid of the auction house and revamp how all this stuff works and figure out by the time of the first expansion how to make it actually good. This thing needs to be good when it comes out, because Blizzard is hanging by a thread in terms of reputation
really
at this point.
Skating on thin ice right now.
So I think Rod Ferguson is a brilliant hire for that.
I have a feeling like within 4 years, he'll be running all development at Blizzard.
Would not shock me at all.
He will, and he won't even have to work that much at that point. He'll have disciples around him who know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I were at Blizzard, even on other teams, I would be in line to ask him like 3 key questions about my project. Now.
Just bring him in, show him what you're working on, what your goals are, and let him just tell you.
He could very quickly become the Blizzard MVP for just about everybody down there.
I think Blizzard needs a new MVP.
I think it's a brilliant hire.
Great hire. Yep.
And I do know him personally. Like,
he's a great dude.
I see him and say hi to him at the whatever event I run into him. But like, outside of knowing him and liking him, I think his reputation is completely deserved, and
it's peerless.
They honestly could not have picked a better person to try and solve some of their issues.
I think bigger picture at Blizzard, absolutely,
for sure.
For Diablo 4.
I mean, Diablo 4 is just sort of the most immediate problem. I think,
He could actually bring some of his action leanings into Diablo 4 and change it up a little bit. So I'm excited for that. I think it's a really smart hire, and I think the implications of it could have a ripple effect for many, many years to come.
Bunko is correct. He is the Winston Wolf of video games.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You call him the Wolf? That's all you had to say.
They call him the closer for a reason. Yep. The other side of this story is that obviously Rod left the Gears team at Microsoft, and the body didn't even get cold before Cliff Bleszinski went on social media and was like, Hey,
I'll do it.
Hey, I hear you're looking for somebody to make Gears of War games.
You're looking for a rabbit?
Yeah. Are you? I'm surprised that he did this, because people may not even know. Like, he has a Broadway show that's like
he won a Tony.
He won a Tony. It's been really successful. Like
Hadestown.
Yeah, if you're friends with him on social media, or you just know him in general, and you see a lot of like what he's doing, he doesn't do jack with video games anymore.
No, he doesn't want to.
Yeah, everything.
He's happy.
Yeah.
Like, the last couple times I've seen him, he's happy.
Everything he's doing in life is related to something besides video games.
Yeah. He's writing a book. He's writing his memoir.
His last studio, Boss Key, I mean, all due respect to him and everyone who worked there, but it was a failure. Mm-hmm. They put out kind of 2 games, really one game and half another.
One game and an idea.
Yeah, I mean, I had friends working there with him too, and they were kind of, they may have moved across the country to work there, and a year and a half later.
I mean, look, if he's willing to like wade back into that again, like, and contribute some ideas and be a consultant of some kind for Gears, like, I welcome that. If as long
You
as
could do a lot worse.
Yeah, and as long as it doesn't ruin whatever new life he's kind of built for himself, if he feels okay doing that, I support that. I think that's good.
What do you think it's like, though, for somebody to be away from the industry for a few years, particularly development, and then kind of show back up?
Here's the thing: I don't think he'd be like moving to Seattle and like working with Coalition on a day-to-day basis. I think he'd be like kind of a creative consultant thing. I can't see him leaving.
So they send him like drawings of guns.
Yeah, maybe he goes there and like works there for a couple weeks at a time or something as in consultant fashion and like just sort of helps shape it. Like, I don't think I feel like I have a hard time seeing him giving up his life in North Carolina to go back to Seattle and work full time on a Gears game.
I would say this: he might bring an edge back to the franchise.
Yeah, which it could use.
Because I would say, like, no matter how good the graphics are or how evil the creatures look or sound, it has just kind of lost that edge to it. Like, there used to be a time where you'd boot up Gears of War and you're like, okay, batten down the hatches. Yeah. Like, and something might happen in this game that I'm going to be like, whoa.
Yeah, and if you've played 4 and 5, I think 6 is about the time to bring that back.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Like, it feels like 5 sets you up for what could be a real barn burner of
absolutely.
Of a
he would
game.
Be the right guy to bring in for that.
Yeah, and I think he would have some idea. You need someone who grew up on heavy metal album covers and Image Comics to kind of step in and be like, hey, what if we did this? And Cliff is exactly the person who can do that.
Think about it this way too. He was basically the lead developer on the first Gears that really kind of launched a Microsoft platform. Here comes Xbox Series X. He could kind of get in on the ground floor there and kind of set the tone for that.
I also really like the idea because Cliff was one of the big advocates of the destroyed beauty aesthetic of the original game, and I think they've moved away from that over time. In part because 4 and 5 take place after the end of the wars, and they've started to rebuild, and things civilization started to kind of come back. And if you could take 6 and sort of rip that apart again, and let Cliff sort of guide what the look of kind of almost to be able to see in real time this beauty, because they did make a really beautiful civilization on Sarah, and you could see the remnants of it in the ruins in the first Gears game and 2 as well. But like, I think they nailed it the best in that regard in 1, and it would be really cool with the new power, new tech, and everything to kind of give Cliff the opportunity to sort of like destroy that beauty in real time, if that makes sense. Really see
they've
these
rebuilt
things.
the stuff, and now
that would be like a thing I'd really be interested to see him sort of set loose on.
Yeah, I can't think of anybody better to helm the next Gears. I agree with you. Like, I don't think he'll give up his life, although I don't know why he would rather live in North Carolina than Seattle, but
he loves it there.
I don't know how, but I guess
he's got a real nice house.
He does. I mean, he's going to have a real nice house no matter where he lives.
Yeah, but it's going to be nicer in North Carolina.
Maybe.
You get more for your money out there.
I don't know. I mean, he does seem happy.
He's been there forever. I mean, it's where his life and his friends and everything is.
It's true.
I wouldn't want to leave if I were him.
Yeah. But you're right. Maybe they just need him to come in and just kind of punch up the game a little bit. And that's probably a good way to put it.
It could use a little tooth. It could use more teeth.
Which you never thought that franchise would have gotten to that place. But it had kind of turned a little vanilla over the last entries. Great games.
I agree with that.
Solid on every front.
It doesn't bother me, but I think like you could really turn a corner with it in 6 if you brought a little more Blazinski to your sidearm.
Yep. Microsoft, are you listening?
Yeah.
Coalition, are you listening? And I just think
Cliff, are you willing?
Cliffy. I mean, I just think the industry is better with Cliff Blazinski in it.
That's true. I would agree with that.
He has a way, people care. Like it or not, people care about what he says, and he has a way of stating things that I think most people can get behind and understand. Now, he does say things sometimes that piss people off.
But he also acknowledges that. I think he's learned from it, and it'd be interesting to see this more mature Cliff sort of step back into that role and
it all started
on his own terms and sort of.
It all started when he told me he didn't want to be called Cliffy B anymore.
Yeah.
That day, I'm like, that's your name, dude. I'm like, I know you probably hate it. Like, I would hate it if everybody called me Shaney, like, everywhere I went. Like, I get it, but that's your name, bro. Like, that's what you're known as. He's like, I don't care.
I mean,
then it was Dude Huge. They called him for a while because he started lifting weights, and he went out on a press, and his like muscles were ripping out of his shirt.
Yeah, he was pretty ripped for a while there.
It's funny.
I mean,
there's been all these phases of Cliff.
Yeah, but we all get to reinvent ourselves as we see fit, and not Cliff had to do it in front of the world.
He did.
Like that's the downside of fame.
Yep.
And he got there. I think he's struck a pretty good equilibrium. Like I said, last couple times I've seen him, he seemed very happy, and Hades Town worked out real well for him. Everybody. And it was funny because I heard about the Hades Town because he was investing in it, and I went back to some of my friends, some of my old associates in San Francisco who are big live theater people and have connections with Broadway. Been going to Broadway stuff for 50 some years, like these old lawyer types and stuff, and told them about this Hades Town thing. They're like, I've never heard of a Hades Town. I'm like, yeah, it's the Orpheus myth, but told as like the and then when I saw them again after the they're like, oh my God, Hades Town, it's the hottest. Like I told you, Cliff wouldn't invest in something unless it had some verves.
Yeah, that's true.
So he's got an eye. He's got an eye.
He does, absolutely. So I think this is all good news. It's good news for Blizzard. I think it's good news for Rod.
Yeah.
Welcome to SoCal. Great place to live.
Welcome
to
sunny California.
Yeah, exactly. A lot less rain than what you're used to.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is perfect for Cliff. If they would bring him in as a consultant, he could do as little or as much as he wanted to. I think he could have a huge impact on the next Gears.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just gravy all across the board. Everything's for once. We have a feel-good story.
Yeah.
It seems like they're too few and far between in this industry anymore.
Sorry, System Shock 3. Team.
Yeah, we did. All right.
We feel bad about that, but this is good.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Anthem.
Maybe the Coalition's hiring.
Yeah, they probably are. I'm guessing they are. Because he'll probably take people with him down to Blizzard that were, his ringers from the Coalition. They're probably doing a lot of hiring. We're going to talk next about Anthem, a game that we haven't talked about in probably a year.
No, it's been less than a year.
I mean,
it came out a year ago.
I looked at the Anthem game page today, and the last episode of our show that was tagged to the game page was 70.
Look, we at the very least talked about it when we did the fantasy draft rundown because that was my big dog.
Right.
That was the first pick.
Right. Yeah, from last year.
And it was not a wise one, turned out.
How it goes sometimes. So Anthem, believe it or not, has been dragging along this entire time. Has not had as many updates as I think people had expected.
I actually loaded it up a couple weeks, near the end, the last week of January. I loaded it up just to see how it was doing. Because I'll do that once in a while. I'll just load it up, fly around in free play for a little bit, blow some stuff up. I think I like flying around in that game.
It's fun.
And after 10 minutes, I remember, all right, there's nothing to do in this game.
Is there still nothing to
Not
do?
Real. Put it this way. It was the end of January, and all the Christmas decorations were still up.
Still there.
Which felt correct somehow. It felt accurate. It's like of course, Anthem's the game that still hasn't thrown its tree out. It's
I wonder... I wonder if how long that's going to stay in there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Based on the news we got this week, it may stay in there for a really long time. Because
it's January 30th and I'm still lighting Christmas wreaths up as bonus stuff, and everything's still snowing. I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
It's like everyone fell asleep and went home and just never came back to flip the switch back the other way.
Well, the thing is, BioWare announced this week that it is basically bailing on its update and DLC plan. So if you're a player of Anthem and you had counted on some updates coming to this game in the near future, I've got some bad news for you because it's not going to be happening for a long time.
I'm stunned they just aren't pulling the plug on this thing.
That was kind of my question. So they're completely revamping Anthem from the ground up. They said basically they're addressing your complaint, which has been everyone's complaint. There's no loop to the game that compels you to keep playing. There's no interesting missions to take on.
There's no interesting weapons. There's no the loot is not immediate because you pick stuff up and you don't know what you got until you finish the mission. And then when you finish the mission, you're like, oh, now I got to go through all my loot. I got to go through my forge.
That was a really bad decision. Actually.
It's not Destiny got that right where it's you pick up a new gun, you look in your inventory, you look at the new gun, equip the new gun, fire the new gun. It feels cool. Done. Like that's the loop that Destiny rides on in terms of a loot. You get to see your armor. That's the other thing is Destiny was really smart in that. The stuff you equip to your character changes what the character looks like. Yeah. The armor on this doesn't ever change unless you change the skin or the whatever. But it's the loot doesn't change how your character looks. The loot doesn't make your character look more badass. It's just you all look kind of the same. And I don't know what else. I don't know what you do to fix that, without completely revamping how the entire character progression system works. But there's just no there. I don't know what else to say about it.
That's what they're doing. They're basically just gutting the whole game and kind of rebuilding.
You got to make a new game, and by the time you're done with that, I don't.
Yeah, well, is it? So here's the thing.
Wouldn't it be, at a certain point? Wouldn't you think that it would be better served to get this team on a new project?
I mean, it sold really, really well
It
and
did.
made a ton of money on DLC. It made like $100 million in its first, month, I think?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Just
really
from
top
DLC
seller.
crap. Like, it was the 5th best-selling game of the year last year. It beat some juggernauts that I had assumed that it got dwarfed by. So financially, it's been a pretty big success. So, but that doesn't mean that if people have left and they're not playing anymore, that you should just double down and keep working on that game. Like, it still might be the smart idea to start working on a sequel. Do you think there's going to be a sequel? I do. I think when you sell that much of a game, regardless of kind of the feedback you've been getting,
I wouldn't want to try to sell it again.
really,
That's for sure. I think most of those sales came from people who trusted BioWare or didn't know any better. And I think if you try to sell an Anthem 2, the skepticism is going to be through the roof. It's going to be like trying to sell No Man's Sky 2, frankly.
yeah, I think they could do that though. So maybe what you're saying is, they need to go through this process of fixing the game first.
They need to revamp this thing on
before
the level
trying-
of what No Man's Sky got.
Yeah, because I think,
And I don't even know how you do that.
Yeah.
With this game.
I mean, I would say there's probably going to be a No Man's Sky 2 now. I wouldn't have said that at launch, but they have done such a good job kind of repairing it and repairing the
I don't know if
reputation.
there will. I think No Man's Sky will just continue to evolve forever.
It could, because it's so great at the stage that it's at. But I think that they could release a sequel and people would give it a shot.
I think theoretically, I don't think they'll do that, but I think they theoretically could do that.
Yeah, I believe that too.
Anthem. I think Anthem is poison at this point. Like, I don't know if you can revamp this into something that people would try again. In part because the hook of No Man's Sky is so compelling that people are willing to go back and try it again over and over again, whereas Anthem is just Destiny with jetpacks. And I don't know if that... I don't know what you would need to do to this game to make someone reinstall it. You know what I mean? Like, I still have it installed. I still play it once in a while just to
I just
see
recently deleted it off my hard drive.
Yeah,
I
so I don't know what you could do for the average person who doesn't host a show about impressions of new game stuff to get them to say, like, oh, I'll sit there and have it and re-download this 100 gig thing to see if I fly around and have more things to do now. Like, it's just feels like a lost cause, and I feel like you should focus on something else. But I mean, also at the same time, it's like nice to see EA stick with something, I guess. So
I will say this though, I think,
and not just fire everybody.
And you kind of touched on this earlier. Is the core gameplay of this game is fun.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if some people will kind of have that in the back of their mind, like, the stuff that was kind of hard to get right was good. The stuff that seems like it should be easy to get right was terrible. Mm-hmm. Maybe people look at it that way and they're like, well, the stuff that they need to fix, they should be able to fix. I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Maybe.
I have to do that sometimes sitting in this chair. I mean, I did enjoy Anthem, to be honest with you. I mean, I played it through and finished it.
I didn't.
Did I go
still
back
haven't.
to it afterwards? No.
No.
I never went back and played any DLC, so maybe, I enjoyed it at first blush, but maybe, like you said, I'm one of those people who, if they put out a sequel, I'd be like, I'm good.
Yeah, and I just I still like flying around and stuff. I fly around for like 10 minutes, and I finish it, and I look at my loot, and I sort of like look at the next mission I'm supposed to do, and I just feel tired.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's not going to be anything interesting. I know it's just going to be like a bunch of babble about like sectors and towers and
humanity,
forebearers and the dark and the it's like I that might not even be this. That might be Destiny. I don't remember what the lore on all these games just blends together. I don't know. It's just I was kind of I don't know if there's anything you do to make like Matthias and those guys seem more interesting or make me invested in the characters again.
I never really got invested in him in the first place, to be honest with you. The character
really.
development was terrible in this game, and there's some parts that are so good and I enjoyed so much, and then there's so many other parts that I'm just like, what were you thinking here? So, I don't know. It's an interesting case study. I think this will be, because for a game to be that successful and then maybe never have a sequel that doesn't happen in this industry anymore.
It'd be a hell of a dice talk.
For sure. I mean, right now it would be. Yeah. I would love to hear stories about what's happened behind the scenes.
I feel like no one's allowed to talk.
Oh, hell no. Oh, they've signed NDAs until they're like 80 or whatever. Yeah, I definitely agree with that part of it, but it would be a really interesting thing to hear, like, the whole team, or at least the core team that worked on this game.
Yeah, I'd love to hear, like it was like that article that came out about Final Fantasy VII a little while back, like 20 years later, and it was just like these developers just talking completely candidly about all the stuff that went down with Nintendo, and I would love to see one day an article about this game like that.
For sure. So, do you think So you think they're wasting their time rebuilding this game?
I think they probably
Or do you think it's better to rebuild it and then maybe it's
I think they're wasting their time. I'm not I'm not going to say that what they're making isn't going to be good or fun, but I think the ship has sailed on this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's been out for a while now.
It's a year. It came out a year ago.
Yeah, do you
February
think February
2nd or whatever.
Do you think if they had made this decision, say, like last September?
I think if they made the decision 3 years ago, it would have helped.
What if they had made it a little bit earlier, though? Like when the game was still kind of relevant. And they're like, you know what? We know we screwed up. We're going to break this thing down and just rebuild it from...
Maybe. I mean, but... You know, for all we know, they did. It just takes this long to do that.
Yeah,
like,
could be.
We are talking about a game where, like, the development team didn't really know what the game was going to be until they saw the E3 trailer.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's nonsense. Like
BioWare. And not just BioWare, like the A team at BioWare that we had waited for a game from for so long. It's really crazy.
Just I mean, I guess I don't know who's working on this. I mean, I believe they turned it over to Austin.
Yeah, it seems that way.
The online stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're the ones that would be revamping this from the ground up, or they'd give it to Vancouver or whatever.
I doubt the core BioWare team would be doing.
I think the core BioWare team needs to make sure Dragon Age 4 is not terrible, or we are in serious trouble over here.
BioWare's in serious trouble. It's probably BioWare's last chance.
I would think so.
I mean, it hasn't been on a great run. Let's just be honest. I never thought I'd be saying that about
the
BioWare,
fact that like BioWare's future sort of rests on a Dragon Age game is very disturbing to me because I don't like Dragon Age
that's a little scary.
very much, but like
some people love it though.
Some do. I mean, yeah. I don't get it. But like I never connected that much with anything in the Dragon Age games, but yeah, I know some people that it's their favorite BioWare thing ever.
I'll say this, though. Looking at this footage, like, it's still a pretty impressive game.
Yeah.
Like, all the particles and everything in this game are pretty freaking amazing. The enemy designs I like, but, yeah, it's just the same thing over and over.
Yeah, I mean, it took me like 20 hours to get tired of it, but,
Yeah.
like, it's just amazing to go back to it now, and it's just like, yep, there's nothing else here.
Nothing changed. Yeah.
Once I get my kind of, it's like a favorite dessert. Like, once you, like, oh, yeah, I really like this. I don't want to eat the whole bowl, but like it was nice to taste it again.
Well, it's like when you find a new restaurant that you love, and then you keep going back. After a while, you're like, I kind of don't want to come here anymore.
Yeah.
You can't even remember what the food tasted like the first time you ate it. Mm-hmm. It's pretty interesting how the human mind kind of works in that way. But...
And oh boy, is the service terrible.
That's a good way to put it. All right.
The game as a service is terrible.
Well, we talked about BioShock a little earlier. We talked about BioShock Infinite a little bit earlier. We talked about its struggles in development and how Rod Ferguson came in and bailed it out. I think we're all encouraged by a new team working on a new BioShock because Infinite, I think most people liked it, but I think probably half of the people who played it were at least a little bit disappointed in it.
Yeah, I was disappointed in it.
Yeah,
I think I'm glad it got out. I'm glad it made it. But I was disappointed that they cut so much of the more socially relevant themes and how, like, you know, the sub. I mean, I think it was originally a main plot is kind of the revolution and how the revolution against Comstock like unfolded in the various timelines. And then they kind of just ended up being like a footnote in the final game. And also, like, I felt like there was no real time given to the Booker-Elizabeth relationship and to let it breathe. Like, I felt like a lot of that ended up on the cutting room floor, and like you kind of you relied on that one scene on the beach to sort of set the tone for the entire relationship between them, and I felt that originally it had to be built a little. I mean, it had to build the way Joel and Ellie's is in Last of Us, which takes its time and
took
gets
a whole
there.
game.
Yeah. And instead, it just sort of suddenly they're bonded, they're into each other, and they like each other, and the songbirds come, and we gotta go. There was a really interesting. I can't remember who did it. It was Super Bunny Hop, maybe? I can't remember who did it. It was a YouTuber that did like a video that was basically all the things in the pre-release media of BioShock Infinite that are not in the final game. And it's like a 40-minute video. Like it's a ton. And you don't even realize until you see some of those old trailers. Like, oh, that's not there. That's not in there. Yep. Things that would have made it a more interesting game, but I realized that that you had to get the thing out hell or high water at a certain point. And it's not like it doesn't still have a lot of cool and interesting ideas. It just feels like it's not what it could have been.
Yep.
So it'd be nice to see a BioShock 3 that really like knows what it's going to be, knows what it wants to be, and knows how to get there in a way that Infinite never really did.
Yep.
Because BioShock is a really cool franchise and a really interesting idea just at its heart, kind of the idea of this immersive sim sort of thing that leans more on sort of body horror and social elements rather than sort of the political aspects that tend to populate something like Deus Ex.
I'll say this: I really cared about her playing this game.
They did a really good job.
I really cared about her welfare, and even though like a lot of the cooperative
although even
stuff,
this. Like, she doesn't look like that.
Oh, I know.
In the final
She looks
game.
completely different.
They revamped a lot of stuff about her.
Yeah.
Made her look more Disney princessy.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, less realistic.
Yeah.
In all honesty. But even though they cut a lot of the relationship stuff with her, I still cared a lot about her in the game.
Yeah, it still worked.
I still really cared about
it. You can just see how there would have been a way to build it a little stronger
if
you let it breathe a little more. And there's a lot of like the time rip stuff she does, like it,
which was completely really butchered in the final game.
It kind of originally in the the early stuff that they showed looked like it was going to be a really interesting like free form element of the game, and ended up turning into like which power up do you want her to show it throw it to you and like kind of set. And really, like, there weren't any serious, like, cutscenes involving that aspect that you didn't already see in the previews. Like what you're seeing here, like, this is the central use of that device in the story, really. And you saw this in this trailer way before the game came out. And, like, if you were waiting for something else as cool as this in the final game, it wasn't in there.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Still, I enjoyed the game. It reviewed really well. It sold well enough. It ends well. I think they stuck the landing really well in the game, which is more important than a lot of like the middle content, probably. Agreed.
Because what people remember.
The problem is the game came out and the franchise has just disappeared ever since.
The DLC was really good too.
It was, yeah. Irrational has like moved on.
Mm-hmm.
The lead developer who kind of shepherded this franchise has moved on.
Yeah, the team kind of got dispersed.
Yeah, and he's working on like his own indie studio.
Like this thing with the Revenge of the Jedi thing is amazing. Like that's so good.
Could have been.
I love that.
Like this whole element of the game was overplayed in pre-release marketing, and then
because nothing like this ever happens again.
And then under-delivered in the actual game.
But like that's a great. And I think in the final game the title's actually in French.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
But like, it's a great moment because it's like it gives you a bunch of information about what's happening, but that you have to put together on your own.
Yeah.
Right down to the idea that it's not our time, it's not our world, even beyond what we know that this is our world, because that's not what that movie's called in our timeline.
Yeah.
And so I love that kind of stuff, and they just didn't do anything else with it. Maybe because that was one of the things that was complicating the production.
I believe that's exactly, and I think that's probably the first thing that Rod cut when he went into that studio was like, hey, this stuff sounds cool, but it's not working.
He's like, the 15 timelines is cool, but we need one.
Yeah. To ship this game, we need one, and that's it. Well, anyway, all this time, so there's been a new studio that's been working on BioShock 3. And the studio's been around for well over a year now. It was just kind of common knowledge in the industry that the new studio at 2K was working on the next BioShock. And as it turns out this week, we got confirmation. Yes, in fact, they are working on the next BioShock, except they really just started working on it. So I don't know where all that time went, what they were doing. Maybe they were doing what I was talking about earlier, that Rod had to do with the Coalition, hiring, setting up the studio, getting all the gear in there.
There's a lot of pre-production. It takes a long time to set up something that big.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're not going to see another BioShock, my guess is, for 3 years.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And when did Infinite come out? I don't remember the exact year.
That was 2013, I want to say.
Wow. So we're already 7 years out.
We're probably looking at 10 years between games.
Wow. That's a long time for an IP to be away.
Because I do remember the big E3 showing was the last E3 of X-Play, which was 2012.
Yeah.
And I think it came out well after. It came out the following spring, I want to say.
Yep. So it's already been 7 years since this came out. That game still looks great for a 7-year-old game, I would add. It's still, you can look at that. This is also, I think, 720p. Mm-hmm. It's crazy that, this game was in 720p.
And this isn't even final code.
No, this is the first old demo that they showed, basically.
I think this might be the E3 demo.
I think it is, actually, yeah. Can IP survive a 10-year hiatus when it wasn't all that popular to begin with?
I think it can. I think it depends on, what it is. Is BioShock one of those? I don't know. But we've seen what we would consider dead IPs come back and become bigger than ever. The main one on my mind is Street Fighter. I think Mortal Kombat did something similar. I mean, obviously fighting games can be pretty good at that because it's easy to just pick them back up and go.
Yeah.
But BioShock, I think, does have an advantage in that sense, because in that BioShock isn't a continuous story. BioShock is each one can be a completely different setting with just a kind of similar theme.
Yeah.
So the advantage of a BioShock 3 is that A, you can do anything you want with it, and B, you don't even have to call it BioShock 3.
No.
You can call BioShock something else.
Subtitle. Yeah.
I have wanted.
I think it needs to be BioShock 3 though, because there are so many people who don't really know what it is.
The only reason I would call it BioShock 3 is if I'd made the mistake of putting it back in Rapture. Because BioShock 2 was also in Rapture.
Yeah.
But I would like. I mean, I like Columbia. I like what they did with this. My dream BioShock setting for a new game would be a some kind of Soviet communist set, like dystopia utopia thing, like something like what we were talking about with Columbia here, but communist style. So we've had an aerial city and an underwater city. My BioShock setting would be a Soviet communist moon base.
So we're going to outer space.
We're going to Cosmonaut Town, motherfucker. That would be what I'd do. Either that or like underground, but I think that's less interesting than like a moon base or a Mars base.
It's pretty remarkable watching this demo.
Total Recall with like Soviet propaganda. That's what I'm talking about.
Because like none of this stuff was in the game. Like the whole rail system was like there, but
it was there, but it was not like
it wasn't used the way they show it here.
It was just like a gimmick you could use during a firefight if you wanted to. It was not a.
Here they make it seem like it's this like huge gameplay.
Yeah,
element.
Well, I remember being in this demo and they were talking about like how that was how you got around. Columbia. Like instead it was in the final game it was just you went a certain distance in the area and it just loaded a new section.
Yep.
There was more talk around this time of it being a seamless thing in the way Rapture was. I mean, Rapture wasn't seamless. There was load times between elevators, but the areas felt more cohesive.
Do you think 2K dropped the ball allowing this IP to lapse like this?
Maybe. I mean, I don't. These games weren't like super massive. I don't think.
As far as sales, they sold like 5-6 million.
I think they did let momentum go. I mean, I think you could have built something, but
it's such an odd.
But Ken Levine wanted
setting.
Ken Levine wanted to do other stuff, and it wasn't in the cards. It didn't seem like. These games because these games sort of start over each time. That's an intimidating prospect to have to come up with a whole new setting, whole new bunch of ideas. Like, the original concepts for Infinite had a lot more new ideas than what we ended up with. Like the basic kind of character upgrade system in what the final release version really was just like a reskinned BioShock 1. And I don't think that was the original idea. I think they wanted to do something very different. And I think Rod basically probably came in and said, BioShock already works. Don't reinvent the wheel. Let's just make it like this.
Yeah.
And it did still work, but like I think there was an element of like if you do another one of these, you're just going to start repeating yourself even more than you already have, and nobody was interested in doing that. But now, when everybody just wants to greenlight stuff that you've heard of before, BioShock 3 looks pretty good on paper.
It certainly does. And I would argue that the way society is today, nothing's really gone forever anymore, man. You can revive almost anything and get enough people behind it to make other people care.
No one's ever really gone.
It's true, though.
As Luke Skywalker would say.
But it's true. I mean, even in games, like there have been franchises in the last like few months that haven't had a new entry since like 1999. And here comes a new one. Or they're remaking the one from 1999, and then they're going to release a new one. Kind of like System Shock. Mm-hmm. So...
And we saw how well that went.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously in film, like they're just rehashing everything. So it just seems with pop culture anymore.
And once you've Star is Born remake,
right? Think about that.
They've made that movie a lot.
Yeah. So if you think about like once you've established an IP, it always has value now. It never really goes away. So I'm disappointed to know I'm not going to be playing in BioShock for another 3 years, but at the same time, like I care more about them getting it right because there is something very special about this IP to me. There's nothing else like it in the industry.
Yeah.
So
I mean, BioShock 2 is not all that special to me, but Minerva's Den's very good.
It is good. I mean, I enjoyed BioShock 2. I liked it.
It's fine. I just don't. It wasn't.
The first one was so groundbreaking, though, and you were doing things. You're like, oh my god, I can't believe this game is making me do this stuff. Like, I just think, again, we were talking about it earlier about you have that first shot to kind of make an impression, kind of like with Gears. Playing the first Gears was like mind blowing. Playing the second one was.
As someone who ended up having to read Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead in college, it was really nice to play a game that was mostly just a takedown of these terrible ideas that I'd been exposed to years ago, and I enjoyed that until the end of the game when you had to fight the cover of Atlas Shrugged, which was very strange. And I think actually a couple of people who worked on that have kind of apologized for that. They didn't really know what else to do there, but. It was a lot of fun. Like the sequence, I can't remember the name of the guy. It begins with an S. He's like the stage play guy, the guy, the very dramatic dude.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Where you have to kill the people he hates and take pictures of them.
Yep.
And then at the end, like he does the big entrance, and they play Blue Danube, and you blow all these guys away with a shotgun. Like that's one of my favorite sequences in video games.
It's great. Oh yeah,
ever.
it's amazing.
It's so good. There's a lot of great moments in it.
In this entire franchise in general. So again, while I'm bummed it's going to be so long in between entries, I would prefer to take the time and get it right. If I only get to play one more BioShock before I die, I'd rather it be a great BioShock than something that's just barfed out by some new studio. Yeah. So 2K is doing the right thing now. I wish it had been a little more proactive when they realized Irrational wasn't going to keep making these games and had formed the studio immediately instead of waiting like 6 years to do it. But
2K's
you're crying never spilt milk.
2K's never been known for agility.
It's not. You're right. It's not proactive either. I mean, it's the only publisher that would deal with Rockstar. Let's put it that way. I mean, not many developers can get away with putting about one game every 7 or 8 years. Like today's episode of Pactor Factor, he really lays out kind of the whole Rockstar saga. With a lot of like insider information. Like I didn't even realize that he used to talk to Sam Houser all the time, and that they got pissed off at him because what did he do? He criticized the company for something, and then Rockstar cut him off. And he said he used to talk to Sam Houser all the time. He'd call him and ask him about like how viable is stuff like this. And then once they got pissed off at him, like they were just like later.
That's the end of it.
But anyway, watch Pactor Factor today. If you like Rockstar and you want some insight into what happened with the Housers and Dan Houser leaving the studio, he has, to me, the most informed take on that stuff of anyone. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about Insomniac. Local LA guys and girls. Great studio. Made one of the best games of the year in Marvel Spider-Man. Have made just tons of great games. Have created a couple great IPs, some that aren't so great, but Ratchet and Clank, I think, is definitely an IP that's worth going on in the long haul. Resistance, I don't know about that.
I would like to see remasters.
Yeah,
I just like to see. I was thinking about it the other day. There are still some games I'd like to see rescued from the PS3.
Yeah,
and the Resistance trilogy is some of those.
Yep, made an exclusive for Xbox. Did a
really good one that no one played.
Yep, did a bunch of stuff for VR, but it came out not long ago that Sony finally, after decades-long relationship, decided to purchase Insomniac Games outright. When it was first announced, I wish I actually should have gone back and watched the old episode of GameFace to see what we predicted the sale price was. Because I can pretty much guarantee that we were both way higher than the actual sales price. So the SEC filings came out yesterday from the purchase, and Sony purchased Insomniac Games for just $229 million, $100 million less than EA paid for Respawn. Respawn, when they were purchased, had pretty much nothing.
They had Titanfall.
That's it.
But have you seen Titanfall?
Yes, I have. I've played it.
But that was the meme.
That was the meme, actually.
Like, the hype around. They were the guys who made Call of Duty. Like the guys and girls who made Call of Duty.
Yeah,
like
they basically hired them based on what they had done in the past, not what they had done as a current studio.
Yeah, the promise of what they could deliver potentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Made sense.
Yep. And so to discover that Insomniac sold for just $229 million, when my guess is Sony made at least that much profit off Marvel's Spider-Man alone.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far.
You don't think they made $200 million on Marvel Spider-Man?
I don't know. Like, Marvel's cut is not insignificant on projects like that. So maybe something else they made, but I don't know about Spider-Man.
That's not that much, Matt. $229 million.
It's not, but like, I don't know. I don't know if I'd go that far. Marvel's deals are very tilted in the favor of Marvel.
I'm sure, and for good reason. I mean, it's their IP that made this popular. It wouldn't have done as well if it were just some generic. I mean, as we saw,
it wouldn't exist without.
As we saw with Sunset Overdrive, their other superhero games don't do as well when they don't have the IP tied,
which was not super dissimilar from Spider-Man.
It really wasn't, honestly. And I think what they learned on Sunset Overdrive, helped them.
I wouldn't be surprised if Sunset Overdrive helped get them the job.
I wouldn't either. Because they're like, look what we're doing already. We're already up on the power lines, and we have all this traversal stuff going on. It could have got them the project.
We got a camera that can keep up with it.
Yeah, for sure. So it doesn't sound like you're that. Are you not that surprised that they sold for so little?
I mean, I don't remember what I would have predicted. Like, if I was feeling generous, I might have said more like 500 million.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
But I can't remember what I said. Like, I might have said 300 million.
Are you surprised in general at the overall low value of development studios in general?
I don't know. Like, I don't know what, as a publisher, you are valuing them at.
Their ability to generate money.
Right.
Which should be the only thing you're really looking at.
Right. But, like, you know, they did make Fuse. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, they're not a gold mine.
They're not infallible.
Every time. Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Even Resistance didn't sell. Those games didn't sell.
No, Resistance did not
well.
do what I think. You know, Resistance was part of that period where Sony was really looking for their own Halo, and Resistance didn't get it done. Killzone didn't get it done.
Sony still doesn't have its Halo.
They still don't have a Halo.
It still doesn't.
I don't think it matters that much anymore.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. Is ultimately people are like, it doesn't matter.
You know, we're not in an era where your flagship first-person shooter is like the thing that defines your platform anymore.
Yeah,
thank God.
Because Call of Duty is on every platform. Yeah.
And if anything,
it's always going to be the default.
And I think if anything, Call of Duty is more identified with Sony.
Yep. It gets usually the exclusive content first.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't super surprise me. Like, I guess like that's still a lot of money.
Like, I would have bought them for that in a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. Like, if I were another publisher, maybe like a Bethesda or one of these publishers that really is looking to make a splash, I would have outbid Sony by like at least $100 million.
Maybe, but then you're also wondering, you know, we don't know what what the deal was, you know, like maybe
the particulars.
Yeah, maybe they get a lower price, but in exchange they retain more creative control, or they get to keep all their officers, or they get to, you know, still call the shots on how their offices run, because they you know, for many years they've been voted one of the best mid-sized companies to work for in all of America, of any industry, of just companies, not video game developers, companies.
Yeah.
And so, like, to preserve that company culture, like, I could see sort of like trading some value for
some autonomy,
a little bit of autonomy. That makes sense, especially if you're Ted Price, who, you know, I think prefers to call his own shots when he can. But like, it made sense to, you know, to finally sell at this point. And I don't think anyone's going to be hurting for cash, even at that price.
I mean, it depends on how many principals they had. Yeah. I don't know how many people founded it with Ted.
I don't know. I think it was like 3 or 4, if I remember. I did a whole thing on them back on XPlay. It was a whole history of Insomniac episode once, and like, I mean, to the point that I went and found a copy of Disruptor and talked to them and brought it in and talked to them about like making, and how like Ted Price was like entering the code for that into a spreadsheet on Excel and like trying to like design that way. I mean, it's like they didn't know what they were doing. I think it was 3 or 4 people originally started. Okay. It was not a huge group.
That splits up pretty well.
So, and I'm sure it's divested beyond that, but I don't know anything about their finances. But I wouldn't surprise me if they wanted to, you know, keep Insomniac, for lack of a better. Not that I think Sony has a history of coming in and like completely changing everything, but like you want some kind of guarantee that you get to stay who you are.
I mean, I can understand why Ted would want to sell. As someone who's run a company for just 5 years now, I totally get why he would want to sell, because having someone else have ownership takes a lot of stress off your plate. Mm-hmm. So I can't even imagine what it would be if I was just working for Sifted instead of running it and being responsible for everything it does. There are advantages that come with that. There are a lot of disadvantages that come with it too. I think he was probably at the point in his life, he's like, I don't need any more of the advantages. Like,
Yeah,
he was already rich. Like, he didn't even really need to sell Insomniac. He was already set for life.
Well, he's done it. You know,
Right.
like Insomniac has tried tons of different things. Like, it's not like there's very little really
They've pivoted.
they haven't tried to do or attempted to do or taken their shot at or their spin on. And like,
Because you're right, they did indie games. They did mobile games. They did VR. They were
Facebook
one of the
games.
Yeah, I mean, they have done everything. You're right.
So like, I can see at that point, kind of, if you're Ted or in a position like that, you're just like, I've done everything. I've done everything I wanted to do.
And we've also tried to pivot how many times? Like at a certain point, I think you probably reach the law of diminishing returns, where you're like, I have pivoted this so many times.
Yeah.
There's probably nothing I can do at this point to make our company that much more successful.
Yeah. And there's an element where there's a point where you probably just look at this and be like, okay, where have we thrived the most? Making
Sony.
Exclusives for Sony.
Yeah.
Like, that's the
That's where their
relationship that
fans
works.
are.
That's where their fans are. That's where they've had the greatest success. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it just makes sense.
Yep. So I just think Sony got a great deal.
Yeah,
but
sure.
but like you just said, if anyone deserves a good deal on Insomniac, it's Sony.
Yeah.
I mean, they have stuck beside each other through thick and thin.
I mean,
when
they
had
announced
to
it-
accept those Resistance games for 5 years.
When they announced it, I mean, to be fair, Resistance 1 is the best launch title they've ever had on a PlayStation.
That's true. Again, a really low bar, but
Right. I mean,
You're
I think Resistance 1 has its problems as well. I think Resistance 2 is probably the best game in the series. But, like,
yeah.
Resistance 1 is not a perfect game by any means. But as far as Sony launch games go, it's pretty freaking great.
Yeah.
You know? I remember that was, like, the real draw. I mean, that was probably the best launch game of that generation for between that and Xbox. Xbox didn't have a lot to recommend at launch.
No. A lot of
You
shovelware.
had Cameo, you had King Kong, you had Condemned Criminal Origins.
Condemned was pretty good,
Condemned
though.
was pretty good.
That's
Condemned
probably
was-
the best launch game.
In hindsight, that was probably the gem of the Xbox launch, yeah.
It really was. It's sad. But anyway, congratulations to Ted and crew. I do think that they could have got more money for their company if they had sold to someone besides Sony. But you're right. Maybe it's just the comfort
In theory,
of the
but-
arrangement. And
But if someone wants to give me $229 million, I'll
line right up.
I'll accept that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see someone in chat's talking about, like, risk mitigation. Again, like, that's
Yeah.
something they don't have to worry about ever again. Getting sued, having to hire a lawyer, all that.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize all the pain in the ass stuff
Yeah.
that goes along with running
Just not
a
having to
company.
deal with the insurance anymore.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all of it. It's just like, let Sony
Probably going to
corporate-
save somebody days per year, weeks per year.
Yep. So congratulations to Insomniac. And, you know, I'm complaining about the purchase price. I'm sure they're not.
No, I think they're fine.
As Ted is surfing the internet looking to buy his new boat. I'm sure he does not care one bit about how much they got paid for them.
He's just Gus Van Sant in the back of the Jay and Silent Bob. I told you I'm busy, Shane. Counting the money.
Yep. All right, let's move along. We're going to talk next about GeForce Now. Because all the discussion right now is about Stadia, because it's the hot new kid on the block. It's Google's game streaming service. Little beknownst to everybody, in the background for the last 5 years, GeForce has been building its own game streaming service. This was announced in 2014. The problem, and the reason nobody knew about it and nobody cared, was because up until recently, it was only available for, like, Shield tablets. It was, there it is. So a lot of the trailers in this, all it focuses on is Shield. Because when it first was announced, that's the only thing it was compatible with, which is so bizarre that they would only set up a service that takes this much R&D money to run on their own proprietary hardware. I guess they had high hopes for Shield, misguided if you ask me, but they finally discovered the error of their ways, and now it is available for PC and Mac. And that's when everything changed. Everyone's like, oh, wait a minute. This works on PC. This is a game streaming service. It's a big thing, right? Oh, my God. GeForce. Oh, wow. It's actually pretty dang good.
Yeah, I have this installed. I've had this installed because I have a GeForce card, and I didn't even know that was on there.
Yeah. It's like, I think a lot of people don't even realize that, like, Shadow Play, that you can, like, record gameplay footage.
I have used that.
I've used it a bunch. I use it all the time to capture, games or even just desktop footage for different projects that we're working on. But I think a lot of people don't even know that that's there because it's kind of buried in the menus. And so GeForce Now has been a part of that since 2014, and just now it's finally starting to get notoriety. And the thing is, it's different. It's not just another Stadia ripoff. It's trying to do things a lot differently. And the biggest differentiator between it and, in all honesty, pretty much every other streaming service is that you can play the games you already own.
Playdia.
So
yes. I think I would have gone with Invadia.
It hooks into Steam. It hooks into Epic Game Store, good old games, and it goes and it basically uses that API to know what your library is, and it just lets you play the games that you already own. And a lot of you guys, I know you already have big Steam libraries. You could conceivably go anywhere in the world on a mobile device or on your laptop and play any game from your Steam library on GeForce Now. And you can do it for free. So one catch is it's only 1080p 60. It's not 4K.
But then neither Stadia.
Yeah. As of right now, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much Stadia as well. The other catch is that to play for free, you can only play for 1 hour a day if you want to play for free. If you want to play, even if you pay, and the cost is $5 per month for GeForce Now, even if you pay, you can only play for up to 6 hours a day. And no matter when or how much you decide to play, there could be a case where you can't play because there are server waiting times because they don't have the infrastructure built out like Google or some of these other huge companies, although they should, because, dude, their stock has just exploded in the last, year.
You know what I might do instead? Play a game on my PC.
Right. Fancy that.
I'm still so far into the who gives a shit camp on this
on
stuff.
Streaming.
I
think the idea is that if you have your laptop,
oh sure,
or anything,
my laptop can run most of this stuff on its own. No, I don't need it. I don't need.
A lot of people can't though.
And if I guess on a tablet I couldn't, but why would I want to play that on a tablet?
A lot of people have old PCs kicking around.
My controller with me
that have crappy processors that are 7 years old and hardly
NVIDIA Shield
any RAM, and it'll run this. I mean, it's all dependent on your internet connection, is what it comes down to. And so, for a lot of people who have some old rig sitting around that won't run anything anymore, it's a console that plays your old library. So. And by all accounts, and I didn't try any crazy graphics intensive stuff because I had to use what I had on my Steam library. Most of those games I have on consoles, but everything that I played on it looked freaking amazing, better than it looks on my graphics card in some cases on my GTX 1080. So they definitely have the machines there, but it's literally it's so crazy with streaming games that you are literally just playing a PC that's sitting somewhere else. It's not like you have a PC and 1,000 people are playing off of that PC. It's one person to each PC, which is why you sometimes get left in queues when you're trying to use GeForce Now. Now, if you pay that $5 per month, you do get priority in the queues, so you don't have to wait in queues as long as someone who's trying to play for free. As of right now, there's 400 games supported already, which is pretty impressive.
God, are they showing Marvel Heroes in this?
Yeah.
That game's been dead for a while.
Well, this trailer's from 2015, old. Matt.
Yeah.
That's how long this has been around. So it 400 games available. It does not connect to Xbox Live or PlayStation Network. I don't know how they could I don't know how they could ever work that deal out, but if that were to happen, that would be huge. And you need a minimum of 15 for 60 frames per second at 720p. You need 30 megabytes per second for 1080p, and there's a 90-day free trial to just give it a go if you want to. Now, keep in mind, at that 90-day trial, you can only play for an hour a day, and you're going to be in queues because you're not spending the money. But $5 a month for 6 hours a day, that's pretty good. If you're playing any game more than 6 hours a day, you probably need to check yourself. Unless you're us and you have to do it for work or whatever. Or
you should probably just buy it.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Well, that's the thing though. With this, you can actually play the games that you have already bought and purchased, which is not the case.
I can already do that. I have a PC.
You have a powerful PC.
Yeah, but why would I have games I can't run on my existing PC in my game library?
Because PCs get old and they get out of date and they...
Right, but what I'm saying is why do I own a game that I can't run on my own PC that I need to play this through streaming?
I don't know.
Like that, I don't. Again, it's a solution in search of a problem. Like, it's cool. Like these are all new games when this trailer was released, obviously.
Yeah.
But I also don't think it's coincidental that, yes, no one knew about it because it wasn't a thing that was widely publicized. Obviously, NVIDIA did not hold a giant press conference to say they were going to revolutionize how games are played. But also
Android only.
But also nobody noticed because no one gives a shit. Like, so I don't know. Like, neat. Like, I might try it. Because what is it? Is it an app or something? Like,
yeah, it's just built into like what's GeForce Experience or whatever.
Right. So I got GeForce Experience on my PC. What do I do with it?
You go and you find GeForce Now, and you can just start playing it. It's all built into the GeForce Experience.
I have to play that on my PC?
Yeah, I mean, you can play it on anything you want. You can play it on your...
Is it on my TV? Is there a GeForce Now on my TV?
No, there's no GeForce app on your TV.
Well, then who gives a shit? Like, what am I playing it on then?
Oh, you can play it on anything. You can play it on your phone, on your phone or on a tablet. I mean, you could if you...
So I can play it on much tinier screens than what I already have.
Well, I think the idea is that it's like on the go when you're not at home.
$7.99 a month on that.
Oh.
That trailer says $70.
Well, they must have brought the price down over time.
Yeah, because no one fucking
You're probably
cares.
right. No one cared. Is this whole streaming thing just a bunch of hogwash?
Yes.
Are we making something out of nothing?
I think so. I've said over and over, it's a solution in search of a problem, at least in this market. Maybe not in a market like India or China where you don't have as much access to hardware and piracy is a bigger concern. But it's a completely useless feature to me. And again, I don't care about playing video games all the time if I'm outside the house. Like, that's just not a thing I care about. I don't take long train rides. I don't take planes that have decent Wi-Fi very often. It's just like I don't...
Oh, Matt, you know who this is a big deal for? Mac users.
I'm a Mac user.
Yeah, but you also have a PC.
Yeah.
A lot of people only have a Mac. And I would argue if you have a Mac and you don't have a PC, you're probably not that hardcore of a gamer. But the truth is, on Mac, there are not a lot of games. No, so this does open up.
You'd be surprised. Like, I'm continually surprised because when I go up north or whatever to visit my family or whatever, I generally don't bring a PC. I bring my MacBook because that's my main computer. And I am continually surprised when I go through Steam because a lot of times I'll bring up Steam on my Mac because if it's like Christmas because it's Steam sale and like whatever. I'm continually surprised at how many games actually support Mac. Like, it's more than you think.
Well, I mean, we add games to Sifted every day, all day, every day. There are not that many Mac games.
More than you think.
If you think more than you think is like more than like 3% of all games announced.
It's much more than that.
I mean, not according to our database. I can show you the data.
They're
just not that common.
I have been surprised by how many games support Mac at this point.
I mean, I would say that because I thought there was 0.
No, it's been more than that.
There's way more than that. But
I've been a Mac user since well before anyone else. I mean, I've been using Apple stuff since '86. So I went through the period where we didn't get anything. I have a box as tall as this table of Mac versions of games from the '90s that I don't think anyone owns anymore or can play because a lot of them are System 7. But I'm like, I don't know. Does anyone need do archivists something? But people save code. Like,
that's a good point.
Does anyone need the Mac
code
version of the Alien versus Predator series?
So it's not gone forever.
Yeah, so it's not gone forever.
That's true.
Exactly.
Yeah, preservationists may be interested in that stuff.
That's the only reason I haven't just thrown them in like a fire. So,
yeah,
because otherwise they're just taking up space.
Yep.
But but again, like you said, if you do care about games and you have a Mac, you probably also own some kind of gaming laptop or something. Which granted costs overall more than $5 a month.
Yeah, a lot more.
But at least you own your games and you don't have to rely on NVIDIA to play them for you, wait in a queue, and you can only play 6 hours a day.
I don't think that there's even a storefront on GeForce Now.
You just scroll through and it's just in there.
I think you buy everything on your other services and it just links into them and lets you play them. Which makes you wonder what GeForce is going to get out of it.
I mean, it's a nice trick, but it's also that's kind of like GeForce is just sort of like they want you in the ecosystem. They want you to buy their cards. That's where they make their money is when you spend $1,000 on their damn Titan X thing.
Oh, yeah. Or when you spend your $5 a month if you subscribe to the service or whatever.
That's just bonus, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure NVIDIA was like, hot damn, we built this product like 8 years ago, launched it 5 or 6 years ago. Nobody cared, and now all of a sudden, here we are, front and center on gaming podcasts and all the news channel. It's pretty nuts, but I think Google just kind of kickstarted the conversation around it, and people started poking around, and NVIDIA, to its credit, has worked on this all along and improved it. So the experience that I had playing it, My connection, I have a cable connection. It's not beastly. It's like 50 megs pretty much. 1080p 60 was butter. It ran great. I had no problems with it at all. Again,
what about like response time? Because like my
I played Cuphead and I was shocked at how good it was, man.
My go-to is always one of the Arkham games.
Yeah.
Because the counter window is narrow
Very
enough
narrow,
that if there's any real lag, you're gonna miss constantly.
Well, I played Cuphead and played fine. That's pretty impressive to me.
Yeah.
I mean, that really does rely on split second. I did not play anything with like a really tight counter window, so I don't know how that would have worked, but I was able to play Cuphead no problem.
I mean, they show Street Fighter in here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would play that, but
No.
they're going to show it all they want, but that doesn't mean I'm going to play it. But anyway, it's just another option if any of you are really seriously considering Stadia. GeForce Now sounds like it might be a better product because they're not kind of locking you into this storefront that may just disappear one day. It's basically encouraging you to keep buying games on the services.
Yeah, at least this is like more of a bonus feature than a attempt to take $60 from you on a regular basis.
Another advantage too, Matt, is ray tracing. So if you pay the monthly charge, you get ray tracing, which means you get access to their most powerful rigs. And I will say, like, look, I have a GTX 1080. What I played on GeForce Now looked better than anything I've ever ran on my
as soon as
GTX.
you bring ray tracing into the equation, yes.
Yeah. So even if you have a rig and it's like mine, like a 1080 is not a crappy card, but it's kind of dated. And
mine's pretty dated too.
Yeah, I mean, you get an upgrade playing on GeForce Now, so there is some incentive, but I agree there's not a lot. So if anyone's out there who has an old rig and has a bunch of games and would like to play them in as high fidelity as possible, it's a pretty good option. And for now, it's free to play for an hour a day if you want to. So definitely worth checking out.
I mean, it's already, that's already an advantage over Stadia. It's like you can play for free with all the stuff you already have, just see what it's like. Yeah. Stadia won't let you do that yet.
Yep.
And they don't even know when they'll let you do that.
Yeah.
So.
It was a pleasant surprise to me. I'll put it to you that way. Like, the tech impressed me. Again, they don't have like tons of data centers everywhere like Google, but we do live in LA.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard for us to gauge how network stuff is going to work living here because LA is always going to have good internet.
I mean, it's still just sort of like, it's still like doubly kind of useless to me in the sense that if there's no app for my TV, that's really the only other place I'd want to play PC games.
I hear you.
And I tried to do that with Steam Link, but
you can only play like turn-based stuff with Steam Link.
It was not very good.
Yep. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about the revival of Scalebound.
Oh boy.
You guys may not even remember what Scalebound is, but as soon as we start rolling the B-roll, you'll be like, "Oh yeah, it's that game that looked really awesome that got canceled for no freaking reason."
Which, by the way, is also how we would describe Anthem if they canceled it. So be careful what you wish for.
That's a good point. Scalebound was supposed to be an Xbox One exclusive, under development by Platinum Games. It's come out through the wash over the last couple of days.
AKA How to Maim Your Dragon.
Pretty much. It's come out in the wash over the last couple of days that Microsoft actually owns the IP for this. So all this stuff is going on at Platinum right now with the Wonderful 101, and so people have had access to them, and they asked them about Scalebound. And Platinum said they would absolutely love to finish the game. The problem is Microsoft owns the IP, and it has to rely on Microsoft to reignite the project. How do you feel about that? Do you think this is something that Microsoft should do? We were talking earlier about how Microsoft is struggling to make inroads in Japan with Xbox. Is this the type of game that maybe could help with that?
No.
No.
I don't think it matters, and I don't think I care. It's over.
You mean Xbox in Japan is over?
Yeah. Well, also, like, I mean, this looks cool and all, but again, like, I'm not a giant Platinum fanboy. I think too much of their stuff just feels the same over and over again. I like what this looks like.
I would argue this does look and play different, though.
You'd think, but then again, if you got your hands on it, maybe not, because it is just another dude in the headphones running around swinging a sword.
Well, you're controlling a dragon, though.
You control a guy controlling a dragon. How much actual control you have over the dragon. And also remember, like, apparently they had so much trouble doing that they canceled it. So, like, I don't know how good this thing was.
Well, they said that they ran into technical issues, and that's why they canceled it. Basically, the game was too ambitious for the hardware, because, let's be honest, Xbox One... it's pretty much a piece of crap now.
It was behind the curve.
It was behind the curve when it launched, and it's really ancient now. So, look, I think even Xbox One X could probably run this, and now you have Series X coming out. They could maybe port this code over to Series X. It could just snap their fingers and it's running at 120 frames a second.
Nothing's that simple.
I know. I'm oversimplifying, but
couldn't. I don't think it's worth it. Like it's not.
Yeah.
This wasn't going to make a dent. That's the simple truth. It's like it might have been cool, might have been great. We don't know. It was not going to make a dent any more than any other weird offshoot things was going to. Like I don't know what.
This game was popular, man. It was tracking crazy high on Sifted before it was canceled. Everything that they put out for this, people ate it up, and I did. I was into this game.
I mean, it'll probably be more popular than Godfall will be, but like,
that's again a low bar.
I just don't. I don't know. I don't.
It seems crazy that they put so much work into this game for nothing. Like, it's hard for me to even thinking about Phil Spencer. He's like, we invested all this money in this. How much would it cost to actually put it out, have an exclusive?
Well, now they don't do that anymore, apparently.
Yeah, so, I guess, well.
The only thing I would think is, if I were in their shoes, is I might try to kind of revamp it or resurrect it in conjunction with the upcoming TV series based on Dragon Riders of Pern. Like I tie it in with a license and call it a day.
You can even see here the frame rate.
You
not great.
You see in the previous cutscene where the dragon was like moving, like doing facial expressions, and the frame rate was tanking just doing that.
I mean, we could see that there were technical issues with this game all along, but again, you're right. You can't just snap your fingers and suddenly it's going to run at like 5,000 frames a second.
And I still feel that if it was a really good, compelling game, they would have tried to figure it out.
So do you have a feeling that maybe Phil Spencer used tech as an excuse to cancel a game that he thought was going to be a piece of crap?
Well, I don't think that's an excuse. I think it's a good reason, especially if you don't think that it's going to be worth the effort to overcome the tech obstacles.
Well, I'm saying it was an excuse because he had to give a reason to Xbox fans why they lost an exclusive without making it sound like we were idiots for ever greenlighting this project in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, technically, you're probably still an idiot for greenlighting something that your hardware can't run. I mean, that seems like something you should be able to figure out pretty early in pre-production. That's just a matter of not targeting the proper goals, really. But
I just can't think of too many games that got this far along that just disappeared and never reappeared.
Well, give Beyond Good and Evil 2 some time.
It's working on it. But again, this was different, man. Like, just having your dragon and fighting other people's,
it's better than another Forza game, but like...
Yeah, like, I'd rather have this than...
Optics-wise. But,
yeah, I mean, I'd rather play this than another Forza game. Not Horizon, but another Forza Motorsport. Yeah.
I think
I don't need another driving sim.
Indiana, let it go.
No, Matt, I can't let it go.
Like, don't turn into a Firefly fan here. Like, you gotta move on.
Look, it's not me. It's like everybody else who's not moving on. They're excited about it. Platinum mentioned it, and now everybody's reporting on it, and they're like, hot
Platinum
damn.
mentioned it and said we can't do anything about it. I don't know why everybody's excited about it. Like, it's like they've straight up said Microsoft won't, unless Microsoft does something, it's not going to happen, which indicates that Microsoft is not doing anything about it, which means if Microsoft did do something about it, we'd probably still be 2 years out.
But, Matt, you know how it is. Everybody thinks that they can change things because they have a Twitter account.
Yeah.
That's the way life is now.
No, you can't.
It was like, I can yell at Phil Spencer on Twitter, so he's going to do what I want. Like, everyone is delusional, and they think that that's like, it's not. Like, they make their own decisions completely independent of that stuff. But I think a lot of people...
No one's in the boardroom just like, have you seen these tweets? I think...
From Joe Rob 541.
I think maybe we should spend another $200 million on this thing. It's like, no, it's not. It's not how it works.
It's just very rare for a game to be this far along, and
it was unusual.
Never come out.
I mean, it was a shock when they did it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would like to see it. It sounds like Matt doesn't give a flying whatever.
I really don't. I think there was a reason they killed this beyond just the tech. I feel like it wasn't shaping up into something it needed to be. I love dragons. I love weird dragon things. But
you love swords?
I love swords. I love shields. I love people that turn into dragons. I love hydras. I love giant monsters. But I just...
Somehow you don't care about this game, though. It's really weird.
I would have played it if it came out, but I just don't think it's ever going to come out. I don't think I think Microsoft has moved on.
Well,
And I also don't think Microsoft is quite as keen to come up with a Monster Hunter equivalent, which I think was the point of this game, to appeal to Japanese audiences. And say,
for sure.
Here's our Monster Hunter game with dragons. And I think they've sort of moved on from that idea, as we talked about earlier. And so there's not really any reason to want Scalebound on your platform at that point.
Interesting. And since they own it, it's not going to end up anywhere else.
Yeah, that's it.
That's insane. A game to be that far along, it just, whoosh.
It really has to say something about the game that you would have that much sunk cost and just decide to cut bait at that point. Something was wrong. Something was wrong beyond just it didn't run at a good frame rate.
You're probably...
That's what that says to me.
Right. Okay, let's move on to our last topic of episode 199. We're going to talk about Batman, another game we've been waiting for forever for, the new Batman game from...
That was teased in, September on their Twitter,
Yeah, that was an official tease. Yeah. I forgot about it, where they posted, the owl logo and everything. Yeah. What the hell is going on?
Everyone was like, oh, it'll be at Gamescom, or, it'll be at... Game Awards. It'll be nothing.
Never.
Complete radio silence since then. Yeah. For almost 6 months at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty insane to think about. But we are starting to get some new details, and my guess is you know a lot more about this than I do. They're saying that they've been holding back unveiling the new Batman because it is supposed to kick off some brand new chapter in the DC overall universe. Mm-hmm. Do you know anything about that?
Well, I have a guess or two. First, obviously, they're talking about whatever this thing Montreal is working on.
Yeah.
Which is almost certainly Court of Owls. I think it's supposed to be called Arkham Legacy, is the rumor. Which would probably be, it sounds like they're going to use it as sort of a new jumping off point for an Arkham universe of some kind. The other thing I would think is the DC universe just in comics just went through a big revamp again. It's I can't remember what they called it, but they did the whole Doomsday Clock thing with the Watchmen crossover, and then they're doing a new thing where they jump the universe forward a bunch of years, and now Superman and Batman are in their 50s, and younger characters are those heroes. All the heroes have been replaced by younger versions of themselves, and all the classic heroes are older people now. And that's sort of the new initiative for the comic book universe. And I would think that if they're talking about a brand new universe, to me, that terminology says that these games are going to incorporate those new ideas into how they play, which actually does line up pretty well with how Arkham Knight ended, because clearly Bruce Wayne is passing the torch in some way there. So having whoever plays the new Batman in the comics be the new Batman in in Arkham Legacy, which again, that title even fits that. It all pieces together there,
So do you think you'll be playing as a young Batman?
As a younger, not Bruce Wayne Batman.
Not Bruce Wayne.
The new, whatever they're doing in the new comics universe, because they're going to want to have synergy on that, I think, is what they're talking about here.
Is that smart, Matt?
I don't think anything DC does is smart. So no, I don't. I think that's ridiculous. But
you're basically abandoning your biggest characters.
This is a whole conversation in the comic fandom as well. I know a lot of super long-term DC, hardcore DC fans who think this is the dumbest thing they've ever done, and that is saying something. Especially in the last 15 years or so.
Yeah, they've had some real missteps.
There's just some people that really believe that basically, Jeff Johns and Dan Didio just have no idea what they're doing and are just sort of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, and that really does seem to be what they're doing at this point. Things have been delayed 12 months, and nobody knows what this is and what that is. I would rather see them go completely off in Crazy Town and make a Batman Beyond game, lean harder into the animated universe, which is what the original Arkham games were basically continuations with a different art style of the DC animated universe stuff. I think you've still got the Suicide Squad game in the wings at Rocksteady. I still believe that's what they're working on. There's a Suicide Squad game in there somewhere because they tease the damn thing too much.
Yeah.
Maybe it's shifted into more of a Harley Quinn focus or
Didn't that movie just bomb hard?
Not really.
Okay. I thought I saw that it did.
It's got the lowest opening weekend of any DCEU movie so far, but it is also the lowest budget of any DCEU. So it's only, the Birds of Prey only cost $80 million.
Oh, all right.
And it made back its budget internationally. It's equaled its budget in its opening weekend. It will break even at least, probably turn a decent profit. It's fine. There is a little desperation in the fact that they changed the title after the first weekend.
Yeah.
Because it used to be called Birds of Prey, The Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
And now it's called Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey.
Which is
probably
what it should have been called
in the first place. It also shouldn't have been rated R.
That's so wrong. People are so stupid. It's just obvious.
Warner Brothers doesn't know what they're doing with this universe.
It really doesn't.
And the other problem that is partly due to, the real problem is because they gave it to Zack Snyder in the first place. They're the big guns got screwed up, and so they can't bring them in. One of the weirdest things about Birds of Prey is a horrible murder thing with Mr. Zsasz is happening in Gotham City, and Batman is nowhere to be seen. Like, there is no way the events of Birds of Prey would happen in Gotham City and Batman wouldn't show up.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
It's his city. Like,
they just can't be in it, though.
But he's not in it because no one's Batman right now. Ben Affleck doesn't play Batman anymore. You can't do. We're waiting for the Matt Reeves Batman, played by Robert Pattinson. But we don't know like whether that's even going to be part of the universe or not, so they're not using that yet. It's just nonsense, and that's part of the problem that DC movies have right now is that every single one of them has to start from a standing stop. Like, there's no momentum. Like, even if Eternals, which, by the way, is probably the least interesting property Marvel owns, period. Like, if you were to ask me what is the thing in Marvel Comics I care the least about, I would probably say the Eternals.
Right.
They have a movie coming out this November in the MCU. Even if that movie is terrible, the inertia of the MCU's popularity and interest that people have in it will carry it to a $50 million opening weekend.
Oh, yeah,
one way or the
for
other.
Sure.
Or more. But DC has to earn itself every single time because even looking at...
It has no momentum.
Because there's no inertia. Even looking at Birds of Prey here, the last DC movie to come out, and granted it wasn't part of the universe, but the last DC movie to come out was Joker. And as much as I don't like that movie, it made $1 billion, and it was rated R, and it came out in October. So, like, how did that not translate into any momentum for this new one?
It also,
which includes a very
origin story of Joker.
Man, it remade 2 Scorsese movies like an idiot would have rewritten them. But Joker is a terrible fucking movie, but like
You think it's terrible?
I think it's one of the worst things I saw last year.
I haven't watched it.
It wants to be about something, but can't take a stand on what it's supposed to be. Has no real point of view, and has been told better in multiple other ways. I think the 2 Oscars it won are correct. The score was actually great, and Joaquin Phoenix gives 110%. No one else knows what that story's about except him, so he's kind of working on his own.
Interesting.
But that kind of momentum that should have built something for DC.
Yeah.
And the fact that Harley Quinn is a major character in the new movie and she's so
slips out of
associated
the
with
gate.
the Joker, and then it just doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
And now you're about to see the same thing happen again with Wonder Woman 84 better be a hit. Or they're going to feel,
it will be.
Or you're going to start to see people start to get shaky about the Flash movie, which has a really good team behind it. We might get a good Flash movie, people. Like, that's mind-boggling.
That is pretty mind-boggling.
And meanwhile, all the CW shows, which I don't really watch that much, but I did keep an eye on the Crisis and Infinite Earth stuff. They hit that stuff out of the park.
They're good.
Like, you can do this material correctly on a budget that like we could almost afford on the CW. The CW is nothing.
No, I know.
But like. But like they did it,
Yeah.
they got it done. They did crossover stuff. They brought Ezra in from the movies. Like everything you could possibly think of. They had the voices from the old cartoons showing up as the characters. You had Brandon Routh from Superman Returns came back as older Superman.
They did it right.
They might do a Lois and Clark thing. They did it. They got it done, and like they weren't even the movie division. So it can be done. The movies just don't know what they're doing. Meanwhile, in the games, they're just MIA. Like, there's just no DC presence in video games right now except for DC Universe Online.
Do you think DC trying to emulate Marvel in that they're creating this all-encompassing sort of universe where everyone's cross-pollinating with others and all the films are kind of crossing over with each other? Do you think that's a good idea?
It was.
I mean, it works for Marvel, obviously, but is it going to work for DC?
There was no
and what impact is it going to have on the games? Like, I would prefer that they just could make the games independent of what's going on with the films. I know that'll never happen, but I think it would be better for the games if that were the case.
I mean, I think the games will be independent. I think they're going to be more tied into the comics.
So you don't think that this new Batman game, you're not going to be playing as like Batman Jr. and Bruce Wayne is just some figurehead?
I think you will.
You will.
But that's how the comics are going to be now.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with the movies.
Okay.
I think the Matt Reeves Batman movie is going to be much more back to basics. This is what Batman is. He's, Robert Pattinson's playing Bruce Wayne. It's going to be a younger Batman. Who knows what it's going to be related to? If it's going to be hooked in with the Joker movie, or if it's going to be hooked in with the main DC cinematic universe stuff, or if it's going to be of its own thing. It should probably be its own thing. Certainly, Commissioner Gordon is not the same Commissioner Gordon from the DC cinematic universe because he's played by a different actor who's a different color. So who knows? Like, who knows what they're doing at this point? I mean, at this point, I think DC or Warner Brothers may have just embraced the idea that they basically have to start over every time they make one of these things. And now, the real test, I think, will be, will Wonder Woman hit the way Wonder Woman 1 did? I don't see any reason why it wouldn't.
I think it'd be close.
And then how does James Gunn's Suicide Squad reboot, sequel, whatever it is, do? the Suicide Squad, which
Yeah.
is not a sequel. It's kind of a reboot, but is also a sequel. But they recast certain characters. But one of the reasons they recast is Will Smith didn't want to do it because he wanted to do Bright 2 instead. I don't know what's going on anymore, people. I'm done trying to second guess this shit. So the Batman games, I think you've got the Arkham Legacy thing from Montreal. I think you've got a Suicide Squad waiting in the wings. There's constant rumors of either a Green Lantern or a Superman game somewhere. I don't know if I believe those. But it wouldn't surprise me if after all this time they finally got a few games in the pipeline ready to fire them out one after the other, maybe in a 3-year cycle or a 1.5-year cycle or something. Because they could use it because there's no DC presence in video games right now other than that MMO. And the occasional Injustice game. I guess we are due for an Injustice 3.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, it should be the next game from NetherRealm.
So,
and that timing might work out perfect with
pretty
kind
good,
of this new DC stuff kind of kicking
if Arkham
in.
Legacy is further along than we think, that comes out in a decent amount of time.
Squad.
You get a Suicide Squad game coming around. You got an Injustice 3. It's like, okay, you got a constant stream of...
Maybe they will finally get some momentum. They might turn the corner.
In games, yeah.
Yeah.
And like... The other thing is like that's one of the weaknesses Marvel has too. Is like Marvel has no real game presence either. Beyond you had the Ultimate Alliance 3, which was nice, but sort of a weird one-off.
Yeah. And
nobody really talks about it anymore, even though it wasn't good. I thought Marvel Avengers. We don't even supposedly September. I feel like it might slip to next year. Like this is the one place DC might be able to beat them to the punch. And really kind of dominate the mind share in terms of superhero-dom in video games. The other place they do that is animation. DC animation has always been better than Marvel animation.
Absolutely. Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. It's weird to me that it's taken so long. Because what was Arkham Knight? 2015? It's been
2016, I think.
2015 or 2016?
I think it was 2016.
Because it feels like it's been a long time.
It's one or the other. I know for sure because it came out like right after Sifted launched. So, yeah, it should be right around in that area.
2015.
Yeah,
June
2015.
23rd, 2015. So it's half a decade.
Yeah, it was one of the first games I think that I covered. Yeah, because one of our first game evals is for that game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was, absolutely 2015.
It's been half a decade since that game, unless you count the VR thing.
Yeah, so
which
it's
is
due.
Nuts.
It's due. But, Rocksteady wanted to move on. They had to find a new studio to do it.
Yeah, but you had Montreal. I mean, Montreal made Origins, which I didn't think was great, but it was better than Arkham Knight.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible, for sure.
And I think Origins has the best story of the four. But I think it's the best written of the 4 games.
I might agree with that. I don't know about the best story, though. I liked how tight the first one was, to be honest with you. I just liked the first one of all of them the most because it was the...
Well, the first one was a big surprise, too.
It was a surprise, but it was also everything kind of simmered down to an essence. Like, it was pure and clean. Mm-hmm. And then as time goes on, they start tacking stuff on. Some stuff works, some stuff doesn't. Like, they just nailed it, the first one.
I just think Origin was better written moment to moment, and I like the Christmas theme of it. And I thought the younger... more dickish Batman worked, and I thought the first meeting with the Joker was well done. Like it's that's well covered territory in the comics and a lot of like alternate takes in other media and stuff. I just thought they did that really, really well in Origins, and I didn't think much. I thought Origins otherwise was fairly bleh, but like my opinion of it has elevated in the wake of Arkham Knight, which I thought was the most disappointing game of this entire generation.
All right, it's time for our trailer of the week, people. We have a surprise for you. For the trailer of the week. It's for a game that I think a lot of people never dreamed would get to this point. And the game is Fallout 76.
Or at the very least, they thought it would get to this point a lot sooner since they first announced this at E3.
Yeah.
Like, I thought they were talking like October on this one.
I think so. I think most people assume that. You're like, why else would they announce it?
Right.
Well, here we are.
And nothing else
like
to announce.
8 or 9 months later. And they're finally... Look, it's not even ready yet.
Yeah.
They're finally marketing.
They're going to be 2 months away from next E3.
I know.
When this goes out.
I know. Yeah. So, Fallout 76 is finally getting single-player RPG elements. Can you believe it?
NPCs at last.
NPCs, like there's actual stats that you're going to be able to screw around with and actually build a character from. It doesn't launch until April 7th, though. It's called Fallout 76 The Wastelanders, and here's the first trailer.
It's been a long journey. Appalachia has changed. I don't know if you've been following the rumors, but there's something in the mountains. People from outside are coming in, and they're coming to stay.
You're from one of the local vaults, right? All of my people are at risk.
I'm willing to pay good money if you put an end to this for me.
We ain't gonna let anyone stand in our way.
I need you, all of you, to do your part.
Too late, Matt?
For me, yes.
For everybody, I mean.
I don't know.
It's too late.
Yeah.
No one's going to dive back into that now.
I haven't even dived in to begin with.
I mean, I love how they specifically mention, oh, it's free. Well, yeah, it better be
Yeah, I hope so.
free.
Like,
You're going to charge people money. You have no freaking chance. We're running short on time, so we're only going to be able to answer a couple questions today. I do want to thank Slagathor for giving us some bits. We have a couple people who subscribe via Twitch Prime, but I cannot read this handwriting, unfortunately. Stolte69, it looks like.
Yeah.
One super
master gamer.
master gamer, thank you. And Miss, I don't even know what that one is.
Where? Mr. Sixt.
Mr. Sixt. Thank you, guys.
Mr. 6T.
Okay, sure. Mr. 6T. Thanks, everybody, for subscribing via Twitch Prime. ChevelleMan1979, you just did it. Hype Train just hit level 4. There it goes. We might hit 5 again.
Getting there.
Where did all these bits come from? I missed it all, apparently. Thanks, Chevelle Man. Let's see if there's any others. Oh, Tomb Raiders, thank you. Oh, here's a bunch of them.
Sound Wizard.
Oh, Sound Wizard. You did it again, dude. You did it again. That's where it came from. Sound Wizard. This is 3 weeks in a row he's done this.
Yep.
Where he's just, like, showered people with subs. Thank you, man. Dude, you're so awesome. Oh, my gosh. This is great. All right, let's get to some...
Hype Train.
There it goes, hype! It's the hype train. I never get sick of it. It's still so invigorating whenever it happens. Level 4 complete. Thank you, guys. That's freaking awesome. All right, let's try to get some questions in because we are running out of time here. I never dreamed this episode would make it the whole 3 hours, but here we are. Wolfox 10JC. Matt, did you play or watch the Phantasy Star Online 2 beta? I tried to play it. I can't.
I did not.
Yeah, how do you get into it?
I don't know. I haven't even looked.
I did. I couldn't figure out how to get in it. I think it's closed. I don't think you can
Maybe.
just jump in. Believe me, I will try to play anything for this show. I've been like scouring. I'm like, oh, that's right. There's a beta for that. Nope, can't get in. So I've been trying. Justin, I love the hearts over my eyes there on that emoji. It's pretty sweet. From Wolfox 10JC. Oh, wait. No, from ETH Demon. We have a question from Matt since it's a film question. What are you trying to say? What do you think of the future of theaters are? For as much as there was a spat blaming MCU for the death of movies, I tend to believe MCU is hiding, minimalizing an inevitable death anyway.
I think the future of theaters is the same as it always has been, which is that is where people are going to see the big movies several times a year, and it's going to become increasingly difficult to put smaller and more indie movies in, unless you're talking about revival houses like that are owned by specific rich people like Quentin Tarantino, who owns the New Beverly here, and you can see stuff on film there and that kind of thing. But the idea that Marvel is killing movies is ridiculous.
It is.
It's if anything, yes, Disney has a lot of like major IP. The trick to that is like that's not what a monopoly is. Like if you owning the means of production is a monopoly. If you had to rent cameras from Disney and no one else had the means to make movies,
Dude,
that's a monopoly.
People throw monopoly around because
the only thing you have to do to break Disney's quote unquote monopoly of successful IP is come up with successful IP.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not Disney's fault. Sony and Paramount and these other companies can't do it. Like that's not how anything works.
Cry never spilled milk. Call of Duty 1, thank you for Twitch Prime.
So yeah, I think the theaters will continue to limp along at least until you hit a point where you can if I can rent the new Marvel movie the night it comes out for like $50 and have like 10 of my friends over and watch it in my home theater, I will absolutely do that instead of going to the theater.
I'd never go to the theater anymore.
But until that happens, I will continue to go to the theater to see the big event pictures, and that is basically what the entire industry is tent-poled on. and that's going to continue. And but that is not true outside of America. I think that's why you're seeing so much focus on the Chinese market, is because the Chinese market is still more traditional theater going right now. So you won't see that subside anytime soon. But in general, I think it will just kind of continue to roll on the way it has.
Okay. Cinetike. Is video game optimization really that hard with no payoff? Seems like most games try to push for high resolution regardless of how well the game runs, even at the risk of performing poorly with frame drops. And considering 60 frames per second, is it just not worth it given the majority of consumers don't care about higher FPS? Thanks for all your good work. Thank you, Cinetike, for watching the show on Twitch.
That is exactly the case. Like, most people don't care about 60 frames per second. A lot of people can't see the difference, and a lot of people don't even notice that frame rate drops.
Go back to I don't know how old you are, but go back and play some of the old N64 games. If you want to see what you're talking about, where they're sacrificing frame rate for everything else, go play some of Rare's N64 games and watch those things grind down to like 8 frames per second at certain points.
I mean, it's always going to be preferable for marketing purposes to show pretty pictures rather than smooth frame rates.
Yep.
That's just how it is.
Kadaz, what is your wish list for yet-to-be-announced launch titles for the next generation? Something like Horizon 2 or Fable 4. Also, any new word on when the PS5 reveal is happening?
No word on PS5 reveal.
It looks like GDC mid-March.
Probably. I mean, there's persistent rumors that Horizon 2 might be a launch title. That would be the greatest Christmas gift ever, basically, for me. I mean, I would love to play Horizon 2 this year. That would be amazing.
Yep.
I would love to see Fable come back in some form.
I think he picked the two best options.
Yeah, I mean, we know Playground Games, the other half of Playground Games that usually makes Forza Horizon, has been working on some kind of action RPG thing. It's hard to believe that's anything other than Fable.
It would be stupid if it were anything but Fable, but we just saw Rare bust out a new IP out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Everwild, is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's right.
So we don't know. I mean, it's unpredictable, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have no idea at this point, but I mean, Horizon 2 coming out this year as a launch title would be a dream come true, so here we go.
Oh, we got a level 4 hype train emote. Wow, what is that?
That's level 5 completed.
I think wow, we did it again. That's a dinosaur on roller skates or on a skateboard, I believe, that we just unlocked there.
It's like a Triceratops on skateboard.
Not as cool as a giraffe on roller skates, but we'll take it. Thank you, guys. That's freaking awesome. Great work. Emotes are being delivered to the supporters. How many more can they have? It's awesome. Thank you, Sound Wizard. You're just killing it, man. Let me send out the thanks. Oh, you got to wait, I guess, until... I don't know. It just won't let me send... Maybe because I've already thanked you guys from last week. It won't let me do it. Still awesome, though. Yeah, so I think he actually nailed the two best picks for that.
Yeah.
One for each platform there. Good job. With Rod Ferguson going to head up Diablo in mind, who is some other famous game director or producer you think would fit well with some other developer, even if just for one project?
I'd love to put Hideo Kojima on Kingdom Hearts and just see what that turned out to be.
That would be great. My guess is it would not sell very well.
Might give some Disney execs some heart attacks here and there, but
yeah, I would just want to put hard-ass developers together on the same team. Like David Jaffe, put him on a team with some other developer who's just a hard-ass and like no BS kind of guy, and then just hide corners in the studio or cameras in the studio in the corners, and you have a reality TV show just right there. I think you could put Jaffe with just about anyone, and you're gonna have fireworks because he's just that kind of guy. Like he's not antagonistic. He doesn't try to like dig into people. He's just really smart and really snappy.
Yeah. The other thing I think it's just sort of kind of I guess building sort of on what Kojima did there, but like I'd love to team up Guillermo del Toro with Double Fine. I'd like to see what those minds would do.
Huh. I feel like that almost happened already.
Maybe.
I mean, it almost happened with Kojima. Mm-hmm. I mean, he kind of did work with Kojima.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like Kojima made me think of Del Toro, and I'm like, who would I like to see work with Del Toro? And I'd like to see him work with Double Fine. I'd like to see Double Fine set loose on some of his ideas. Okay,
we'll answer one more because we definitely got to go.
I realize it's not quite the same thing, but I think Tim Schafer and Guillermo del Toro would be an interesting team.
Cinetike says he's 35 and 60 frames per second is much more valuable to him.
Well, you are a rare duck, sir, because most people don't know.
Okay, here's the last one.
I'd rather have a smooth frame rate as well, although I don't care that much about 60. If it's 30 and it doesn't have frame rate drops, I'm more or less fine with it. Obviously, 60 is preferable, but like, it's never hurt anything sales, and so that's never going to be prioritized.
Tomb Raiders, one of our mods. I'm going to New York City next month. Any recommendations of things to do? Oh God,
See a Broadway play.
I would not do that.
I would.
Some
without any
people would. I
question.
would not. I hate musicals, so I would not do that.
There's non-musicals.
Yeah, they're plays, I guess. Yeah, they're just
I saw To Kill a Mockingbird while I was
See,
there.
I would
That's
see
not a
that.
musical.
I would go to a play. I would not go to a musical.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said Broadway play.
You did.
I mean,
You're
you can see it. I mean, see a musical. I'm not going to stop you from seeing a musical. Go see Hadestown.
Don't go see music.
Go see Hadestown and yell at Cliff on Twitter about it.
I mean, where do you even start? I mean, go to Manhattan.
Yeah. I mean, it depends what you're interested in. Like, I mean,
Go to Times Square.
I love the museums there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just where do you begin?
Yeah.
Go to Ellis Island. I mean, get on a boat and tour the harbor. Walk across the Brooklyn Bridge. I mean, I could just go on and on and on.
Go to the Statue of Liberty. Go to the Brooklyn Skywalk, whatever that's called. Like, I've never been there, but I hear it's very cool.
Eat lots of pizza. Go to the new Twin Towers that they just built. See the memorial for 9/11. Go out and hear some really good house music on Saturday night. I mean, it is just awesome.
Go to the Roxy Hotel and go to the underground jazz bar in there. That was a good time.
New York's amazing.
Go to Tribeca. It was right next to the Roxy. Go see the Ghostbusters Firehouse.
Eat lots of pizza. Seriously, eat lots of pizza while you're there.
There's better food to eat in pizza. Try it. Eat New York pizza once in New York because New York. That's the only place New York pizza is good.
Yeah.
Everything else is just trying to imitate it.
There's so much good food there. I mean, you can just go on and on. You're gonna get there and you're gonna be like, I can't believe I asked Shane and Matt for stuff to do here.
Yeah, you don't need us.
You don't need help at all.
You just walk down the street and end up somewhere.
Yeah. But I would say go out at night and like become a part of New York City's nightlife for a night and be adventurous. Like go to some place maybe you don't think you want to go. And
play 104. I have played at 144 hertz. I don't care. Like, it's not that big a deal to me. It really
I play
isn't.
144 hertz every day. My PC monitor is 144.
Yeah, mine does that. It's just 60 is plenty for me. I don't care. Like, I know like people, if you're playing competitively, like that's like Overwatch and that.
If you're a big shooter player, like it does matter. But
it's just you
don't play a lot of shooters.
Single player cinematic stuff. 60 is more than enough.
Yep. Okay, that's it for GameFace episode 199. Another reminder, if you have been subscribing via Twitch Prime and you're not a patron and you're not a subscriber on Sifted, you now have access to Pachter Factor 7 days early. So it's on our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. Just click on the clips link, and it's there with some of our old archive stuff. But every week, Pachter Factor will be uploaded there. So if you want to watch it a week early, all you have to do is subscribe via Twitch Prime. Again, for people on YouTube, all that information is down below in the description. It's very easy and very fast, and we would appreciate it very much. And we're trying to help you guys out and hook you guys up because some of you guys have been subscribing for like 17 months. We finally found out a way to reward you guys. So again, Pachter Factor, now a week early on our Twitch channel if you subscribe via Twitch Prime. Next week, I can tell you right now, is not going to be GameFace 200. We're going to figure out something to do next week. Matt is not going to be here, and there's no way in hell I am doing GameFace 200 without Matt Kyle beside me. So it is not happening next week. It'll be 199.5 or something. We're doing a show next Tuesday. We'll be here at 1 p.m. Pacific, but it's not going to be 200.
Yeah, I got movies to shoot.
Yep.
So.
And 200 will be the week after, and that's the big day. That's the big... I'm going to go into it. It's a big, big day, people, and I'm already excited for it. I'm already killing myself trying to get everything done, but it's going to be great. So thanks to everybody who's on chat. Thanks to everyone who stuck around until the end to ask questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to everyone's questions. I'm sorry we missed probably some Twitch Prime folks. This show went longer than I really thought it was going to. I thought we'd wrap it up early and we'd have plenty of time for that stuff, but that's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, somebody brought up DC movies, and
that's all it takes.
There's half an hour gone right there.
That's right. But thanks to all you guys on the stream. Thanks to everyone who watches the archives on YouTube or on Sifted or on Patreon. We love all you guys very much. Have yourselves a great night. GameFace is up and out.